Hey, welcome back to Metropole Grid. My name is Andre. Thanks so much for tuning in. It is the 30th of March. I just checked. And I just updated OBS. It's only crashed once so far. So we're kind of just on untested ground here. So buckle up. It's going to be hopefully just bumpy enough to be exciting. How's everyone doing? It's been a good week in Netrunner. We got another good week in Netrunner coming up. Hopefully you're doing well. Hey, River. Yo, we do no swears this week? Like we or you? Because me, probably not. Justin, how's it going? Welcome, excited. Welcome to the stream. Gonna need the name of that song too. Okay. I don't know which one it was. It's probably Scrambled by Stanley Gurvich, Nobody Else by K Solis, or Turn Up by Stoked. Wait, is this random? It's random. I literally cannot go backwards. It's unlikely that it's one of those songs, but by any chance it is, you're welcome. Hey Dave, how's it going? I have a meeting in 10 minutes. I won't be able to see my deck list live. I'll try to keep an eye on the stream. Okay, so we know Dave isn't going to be watching for this. So we can be as harsh as we want. And actually it's really funny. So this is Dave's deck list. And Dave actually just sent an email out recently, be like, hey Andre, check out my deck list that I published. If you want to try it out, you can. And then since then, it seems like it's been the deck list of the week. And what was really awkward is before that, I responded back to Dave and I said, there's no way I'm going to play this on stream. It's terrible. I don't like it. Would you value my time? And then I have to play it, like a contractual obligation. So I look really silly right now. Only parts of that are true, but he did message. In fact, there's another thing that we haven't shouted out. If we go to David's account, we go to publish deck lists. It opens up this page. This is kind of broken in RNDB. Then you have to hit the search button again. And then you go to this one. So fun enough, David actually sent out an email, like, again, this was probably months ago now, saying like, hey, this is a deck list I'm working on. It is a red level clearance deck in Reality Plus, and using the clickless install of red level clearance to install Drago Ivanov, which isn't something I'd seen before. And the idea is if the runner only has 3 cards in hand for some reason, you can red level clearance to clicklessly stall and Drago, then you can double advance Drago and then just end the line someone. And I hadn't seen that combo before. And so there was an earlier deck list and I thought like maybe you can play also calibration tests and go a bit more fast advance because you're already playing red level clearance, right? Like might as well get some more use out of it. And then David came up with this deck and then won GNK at Canberra. I think I get a shout out here at the end. Yeah, no, this is a real story. I'm not making this up. So huge shout out to David for this deck. Unfortunately got banned ever since, so we couldn't really talk about it. It got like in right before the finish line where Drago got banned. But hey, we're back here. So shout out David. We're going to play your deck list this week. Hey Neon, how's it going? I'm finally here from the start for once in my life. You'll realize you're not missing out much. Like you can tune in halfway. It's like the same show. Neon static in the chat. Seabass, how's it going? Hey, I'm Margarai Taruko. Good evening, Andre. That's probably somewhat correct. Swears are okay. Gotta get ready for the AV1 support. We're grown ups. What's AV1? How's it going, Nick's around? Honored. I got told off last week for swears. As like a person, like the stream did or you did? If you did, yeah, you should do better. It's the grid. Brennan, how's it going? Andre, if you do play the least, please make the changes adding the botch list. Yeah, I read your write-up about this change, and I think we'll definitely look at it. Hey, Anders. Hey, man, love your deck list. Deep dives really helps me learn the meta and game flow. Yo, Anders, welcome to the channel. That's very kind feedback. I'm always super excited that we can help people try and get into this game. Obviously, I think this game is quite swell, and we've been spending a lot of time into it. And this game has like a pretty, I would say, steep enough of a learning curve, but I do think the learning curve of this game at least is quite fun. So yeah, we're going to be doing some startup sampling today. Again, we have an event. This is, I think, is the biggest thing, is that we just put up a video just, I think, yesterday maybe, and trying to do this. And I wish I put this up a bit sooner so we could like talk about it and maybe, you know, get this out there. But we have our first online GNK. It's just this Sunday, starting in 48 hours, no, 72 hours, something like that. And it's totally free. It's online. We're gonna be playing on JNet. Again, you have to be on the NSG online event hub Discord. They're kind enough to lend us space so we can do like voice comms if you want with your opponents. And that's going to be this Sunday, starting at 10:30 is registration, 11 a.m. EDT. If you want to go on the Always Be Running page, which will be linked below, otherwise you can find right now the link in the last video, the Biotic Nightmare video. You can go ahead and like pre-register. This used to be less than 19. This keeps growing, which is pretty sick. And we got some prize support we'll mail out. I think if this gets to a sizable number, we're going to open up 2 GNK packs because I have 2 of them. So just so we can make sure everybody gets like just about something, and then we'll be mailing stuff out. Yeah, I'm super stoked for this. It's also my first time running events, so I'm kind of nervous about it, just because like we have to do judge calls and like pairings and stuff like that, and it's a lot of stuff that I haven't done, which means there's actually, as a chance, as a stream, it might not be a good production. So regardless for that, if you're listening to this and you're at all interested maybe in doing some commentary, it's not gonna be a long event, or you TOing or doing any sort of like, man, last minute recruiting, it looks real promising sometimes. Yeah, if you want to help out with that, I think reach out and we can see what will make work, because I do think there's a chance we're gonna be streaming and it'll be like I have to pop out to like do a rules question or something like that. So yeah, anyways, it's a Sunday. I'm really stoked for it. I think it's gonna be really fun. It's startup. It's, again, it's not like a hyper competitive event. It's a GNK. So like, even if you don't fancy yourself as somebody who is like there to win, let me tell you, you're gonna be there to meet extra other people from all over the world and then play for some prize support, and we'll have raffles and stuff like that. So yeah, it'll be fun. Hope you enjoy it. Hey Dan, went to my first tournament last week and had an absolute blast. Yo, how'd it go? What'd you play? I always love to hear these stories. Were you worried? What, going into it, like, how was it different than what you expected? Neon also says, playing in my first standard tournament this weekend, and I'm going to be scoping the stream for decklist ideas on both sides of the table this weekend. I got a standard event this weekend, mind you. There's one in Montreal on Saturday, and then we're doing the startup one on Sunday, and I have no idea what to play. Again, Neon, let us know how it goes. Marc-Andre, how's it going? Honestly, it's gone pretty poor. Found out a close friend of past Monday. AV1 is the new hot video codec was mentioned because you're updating OBS. I'm really sorry to hear that, X-Ran. Hopefully you're doing okay. Let alone all the families there are doing all right. Sorry to hear that, man. Preparing lessons for high school while watching the stream. Hopefully I don't mention Lou dismembering the Carolingian Empire. I don't know what some of those words mean, but enjoy your prep. Thanks. First time, just trying to do my best to get through it. It's all right, X-Ran. Yeah, no, that's obviously a bummer. Obviously things are going to get easier as time passes. Well, this is really bad advice, but I'm glad at least we can be around for a place to hang out and like talk and do whatever we need to do. So yeah, okay. On that note, we have a deck list of the week. Let's talk about it. Marc-Andre, you registered for Sunday? Are you playing on Saturday as well? Yo, welcome. It's gonna be good, man. I can just hand you prize support. Marc-Andre's a local. Okay. Let's talk about this deck list. This is a Lou list. This is David's list, and it's doing some cool stuff. We're seeing some 5 influence cards, which are always like really fun and flashy to see, but we're playing Lou. So a lot of interesting things going on here already. Firstly, Lou, you notice in the bottom left corner, it says 40 there. That means you can play 40 cards if you want to. And the smaller deck list classically across you know, all card games usually means it's more consistent. The idea is that you have your best card and then you have like your 43rd best card. And the idea is that the sooner you're drawing into your most important pieces, you know, it kind of favors you to go small. To some extent, you want to go a bit bigger if you're worried about like running out of cards against the PE deck you saw on the weekend. Stuff like that, I think makes a fair bit of sense. But otherwise, you want to be small. So it's worth knowing that this Loup deck can and probably should cut 5 cards to be a bit more consistent. So that's someplace we always want to keep in mind, that it's easy to take this list and just shave cards out, and then you can get a bit smaller. Sleeping the deck for Saturday. You know what you're doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I was stressed. Thought it would be heavily outclassed by people who played longer than me. Ended up just barely missing the cut with the draw, placing 6th out of 17. Yo, that's really good. Congrats. What did you end up playing? Played a slightly edited version of your Startup Modernism. Oh, cool. It was a startup or was it standard? I think the Startup Modernism version, if you want to play it, or specifically if you want to also play it this weekend, probably play 3 Retribution. I think you should play 3 Retribution. I think Endurance is going to be kind of a thing. Hey, Ataku, how's it going? Glad to see Consume getting some play. Yo, Consume. Didn't Consume win Worlds? Like, I don't know. People are always excited to see this card. This is like generally seen in more often Freedom lists, but this card won Worlds, like, I feel like 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, or at least came in second. But yeah, this card has been like a thing. 5 Influence is worth playing for this card, as much as, you know, I think people think it's a bit of a goofy one. Comment to your last video. Wanted to hear if you could give some quick startup meta cover. Yeah, at some point, and maybe some suggestions for decks to bring to your first tournament. Andrews, that's exactly what we're going to do today. So we're going to play the deck list of the week, and then we're going to go through and do a little sampling of startup stuff. So we're going to look at all 7 factions and be like, okay, I don't have decks to show, but I'll go through Netrunner DB. We'll talk about certain cards to play around, but we'll also be like, this is a list you should play, because we'll just find one on Netrunner DB that someone published that looks reasonable. And that's a big thing. In startup, just about everything you can do is reasonable. Yeah, just about everything you do is pretty reasonable. So yeah, you'll be good. Dan was at my tournament and placed way higher than me with startup. Neon was a great host. That's really cute to hear. Isla and R+ to get the promo. Oh man, I forgot on Saturday that there's promo support if you are the top player to play Isla and R+. Yeah, we talked about this, which means like the meta of the event probably is going to inherently like be Isla or R+, which like, of course it is. Diogene's going to be there. So that's like half the Isla players in North America. And then, like, I don't know if you try to keep that in mind when you're building against it, right? There's already 20 people coming. Do you think there will be a top cut? Whoa. How's it going? It's me. That's wild. Firstly, maybe it comes to be time dependent. If there's going to be a top cut, it's not going to be a big top cut. Like, we're probably going to just kind of shoot by the wrist. It's not like we have big prize support for the first player that the second player doesn't get. I think like the top 4 probably get the same sort of thing. I have to look at the distribution of the prizes. I'm also like not interested in making the tournament really top heavy in terms of prize support. Like this is not meant to be, and you can make it, but like I'm not the kind of person who wants to run tournaments where it's like, oh, only the top 5% gets prize support, everyone else can like F off. So we're gonna try and spread it as much as we can, but like maybe we'll have it if there's 2 players that are on the top seed, or like there's 3 or 4 players that are close. Maybe we'll play like 1 round just them, but like I'm not gonna do like single elimination like Swiss type top cut. It'll just be like, you can play a final show match if you want, and you're both winners. Or like I don't know. We're gonna be at a bit loose. Startup meta is pretty decent right now. Orb, how's it going? I don't know. Competitive startup tournaments haven't happened since World. I think startup is really cool that every faction is largely playable and they all have interesting and cool things they can do. I do think, if you ask me about startup on a competitive level, I think that there is very little reason to not do the best thing possible, and the best thing possible generally involves endurance. And you're going to see it across every single faction if you're trying to push like the competitive envelope. I don't think people have to do that. I don't think you're going to see that exactly on Sunday. But I do think startup is like, it's a small enough card pool. So like competitively, it probably is already solved. Take that as you will. I don't think that's a bad thing. I still think startup is fun. I think it is. We had a really varied meta. Oh, like in the event last weekend. I see you've heard of the White Blade School of TOing. I don't even know what that means exactly. I imagine White Blade's a good TO. Alex, how's it going? Alex Hong says, I played an NSG/Jeff's online standard tournament last weekend. Yeah, the first AMT, the accelerated meta test. My first tournament experience. It was great having commentary for the top tables and seeing decks like Ag Infusion and Banhar Adam. Yeah, we'll talk about the results because, mind you, you can watch the stream for that event. It's up here on Twitch. No signal Netrunner. Ignore this one. This needs to be deleted. It's this one. That's 6 hours and 40 minutes. I was lucky enough to be able to commentate for the first 2 hours. Shout outs to Cephalopod, who did the actual streaming and commentary of the day, let alone also Cranked, who I got to share the mic with. Cranked is really great as well. It was really fun. I know as the day got on, the top cut, I tuned in for a bit of the top cut. I wasn't able to be there for the whole event. And it was like, what was it? It was that PE deck versus, wow, what's it called? Sorry, that was auto playing. PE versus the Atom deck. I'm glad to see Banner see top tables because I do think it's like one of the most powerful cards in Borealis that has not seen adoption. And Sebastian K also like has had a bit of a weird year competitively as long as the year has been. Sebastian showed up to what's it called, Fight Night, and then brought this Apex deck and just absolutely got like rolled over by Sports Metal. We didn't see Sebastian do anything, and Sebastian's kind of known for being like a pretty eccentric and interesting deck builder. And it's a shame that he showed up to an event and a lot of, I don't know, there's discourse whether that was the deck to bring, of course, but like it's cool to see him do something interesting and that actually like makes sense on top tables, which is great. It's really great to see. Yeah. AMT was fun. I came in dead last. Sorry to hear, Wink. Again, if you had fun, that's all that matters. Someone has to come in dead last, and at least maybe with style. So I'm on call Sunday. If I want to play and have a dip at some point really quick, is that cool? I think that's cool. Wink, I can't promise though, in terms of like participation prizes, that if somebody comes in and dips, that something will be eventually mailed to your direction, just because it's a free tournament. Technically anyone can register and dip. So unfortunately for that reason, if you want to play and like meet people 100%, but like in terms of setting up prize support, it might not be realistic if you don't hit a finish line. That being said, there'll be other GNKs on the channel. So like, sorry, it's just the reality of it because it's open to anyone. So anyone can just sign up and play around and F off and then have to mail them stuff. And like, I don't want to do that for many reasons. Hey Kat, it's going well. How are you doing? Hopefully you're doing well. We definitely had a lot of boats, but a Sable Deep Dive deck swept the startup tourney. Oh, super cool. GNKs are traditionally 3 rounds of Swiss no cut, but it's up to the TO. Yeah, so I think we're going to start with 4 rounds because we have enough players and right, like might as well make a thing of it. I know people are like taking off time to like come to this event, which is pretty wild. So like, yeah, might as well make it a bit longer if we can. Do you know what the Twitch VOD will be uploaded in YouTube? Korea doesn't support Twitch. Oh, in terms of the null signal stuff, I can't tell you. I know that classically Yusengren has been doing this for the last little bit. I know he's always busy with a lot of stuff, but maybe it's an NSG thing though. So I'm not actually sure. I'm not NSG. So, but maybe you can ping Jeff. Maybe I'd be excited to. It's been good. I think the Null Signal Games YouTube channel getting stuff consistently is good. I believe that someone said they put it on YouTube. Oh, thanks, Neon. Hi, I want to offer promotion of your channel, viewers and followers. Hi, I wanted to ban a robot account. Oh, so fun to do this. It's just good fun. Just good fun. Bye. It'll be uploaded 5 sure. Okay, perfect. I got crushed by Apex while playing PE, did 25 net damage and he shrugged it off like a Terminator. Yeah, that's the thing Apex can do. If Apex can do one thing, it's like not die to damage. Admittedly though, can they win the game? It's still sometimes a struggle from there, but like they admittedly cannot deny anything. My one tip is you're playing against Apex and you need to make sure that like you want to kill Apex, ice up archives. Like icing up archives turns to be the most important thing to do against Apex damage because Apex has this card, which installs 5 cards for a single click. And if that's the case, it's a problem. If you're wondering why that we care about this, the idea is that Apex in Standard is a mini faction that competitively has been a bit of a joke. Maybe you watched a stream a week ago where I got a bit salty. I was feeling under the weather. But yeah, you can trash your own installed cards face down as well. So ice up archives a bit, at least against Apex. But again, if your ice, let alone your game plan doesn't work, try to figure out how to score to 7 really quickly. Andre hates robots confirmed. Something, Ken, something. Not a good look. I love Apex. Yeah, I like Apex. I don't like playing Apex. Apex will have their day. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it. It really does not seem like it because Apex rotates really soon. It rotates quite soon, Apex does. It'll be sad. Okay, so let's talk about this deck. So again, we have some uphill fight already. We're playing a 45 and a 40, which like, admittedly, as I'm going to cast doubt on that strategy, that's like a real Andre ass move, right? Like I am very not good at making a 40 card deck and I just say, F it, we'll play 45. You've seen it on the channel before, but we both know in our heart of hearts that when that happens, we're doing it wrong. Now the idea is we're playing Lou. Lou inherently is kind of an okay ability. It gives you some consistency in card draw when you're trashing stuff. The big reason why Lou gets really nice is you have 3 of Imp, and Imp is like just a very reasonable pressure card. Generally, corporations have cards in HQ that they want to keep there, so you can go ahead and trash them and let alone get a card and a credit. So each Imp is worth like 2 cards and 2 credits. You get your money back, but it's nice with some disruption. You can trash assets and upgrades and remote servers for cheaply. You can trash agendas when that makes sense. But again, central pressure just gets better. Also, very much worth noting, in a game where we calculate you need X amount of accesses off central servers, if you trash a card and you can come back cheaply, you're going to see more cards quicker. So the idea is if you're trying to get to, again, abstract naive math, we're not going to explain, 17 accesses, it might take you X turns to get there, but if you're trashing cards and coming and running and seeing more new cards on central servers, you get to that in Y less turns. If I used variables, it didn't make more sense, but it sounded better. So that's kind of cool. Keep that in mind. Now, interesting things, we're running 3x Knobkierie, and this is a console, again, I think, at One Worlds, and this is one of the best virus consoles. It costs a lot of money. You get 3 MU, but only for viruses, which is classic. But the most important thing, it says the first time a turn you make a successful run, you can put a virus counter on a virus. The virus doesn't have to already have a counter on it, like some of the older cards. It just gets a free virus counter, which is really good, because the timing of this is when successful, which means that when the run is considered successful, you get the imp counter if your imp was empty, and then you were always going to get that imp. So basically, lose ability becomes sort of like a Hoshiko if you like kind of squint real hard, and you're also destroying things at the same time. So once a turn, when you run a central server, you get a card and a credit while on instant speed doing the thing you want to do anyways, while also trashing stuff, and that's really quite good. I bet the math on this agenda stuff sure is interesting. I can promise you next week. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, we've had a lot of stuff on the channel, and we have more stuff this weekend. So it'll be out like later next week, I promise you. So interesting agenda density video. You and me both. You and me both. That one's been a monkey on my back. What's Citadel on the list for? Just to clear tags, but mostly clearing tags is nice, is so that Amakua also can get through IP block. So Amakua, we'll get to this. Mind you, this is a virus too. So if your Knobkierie doesn't need to charge a virus that destroys things, you can just charge the Amakua. And that means the Amakua gets to strength way faster, which is really nice because Amakua is the best breaker in the game as long as you don't have to deal with its downsides, which sounds a bit like a ridiculous sentence, but you know what I mean. The thing with Amakua is like very popular, again, I played Apex once, is that IP block does see some amount of play. It's a pretty good ice just in general merit, especially in NBN, but even one influence outside of NBN. But if you have an AI, when you encounter this, you are tagged, which means that it becomes a hard end to run, let alone with a face check, let alone you're going to have to break it. So if you ever run into something like IP block, you can deal with that with the, you can clear the tags. Wait, I'm thinking of hunting grounds. Did I just mess this up? Yeah, you still get rid of the tag. You get rid of the tag. It's not hunting grounds. I apexed a bit, but yeah, hunting grounds. You get rid of the tag for free for 1 credit. It was recommended to cut it. I don't need to defend it farther than that. Apex is very fun versus Loki Ag. Kat, were you surprised to see Loki Ag like last weekend? Because you know, it's the deck that had nothing changed about the deck, but people just agreed to stop playing it, right? Nobody enjoyed it at Worlds. And then finally an event, mind you, past CBI, people just brought it back and they were like, oh yeah, it's still really good. So yeah, next week, written in ink, maybe. Hey, Julianne, I like Apex a lot when my opponent plays it. Me too. I think I'm really excited when my opponent plays it. By the way, Isaru is hosting the event on Saturday. We'll see you there if you're Montreal. Check out the Slack. Wrong points at Big Max and Woo. Not surprised. No, yeah, I'm not surprised either, right? Like, it's probably just an event where people are like, yeah, this is still good. Let's pull it out. And I think people are better at playing it. Like, I don't think it's going to time as much, which is quite nice. Okay, so other cool thing about this deck is we're running 2x Consume. This is 10 influence, mind you, we could be playing Endurance, but we're playing Consume instead. And whenever you trash a Corp card, which we're ideally doing once a turn, it gets virus counters on this, and then you can click to take all the virus counters off of it, a click 2 credits for a virus counter. Of course, if you want to get a virus counter for 2 credits on a click, you can always play Fermenter. We are, but this is also ongoing economy. If you're trying to trash something once a turn, I don't think you want to click this once a turn for 2 credits. So you're trying to click this every 2 turns, every 3 turns. Mind you, this is also not first time, this is whenever. So if you end up trashing multiple things in a turn, mind you, this deck is also running Scrubber, which I think might be a bit rich for me. Yeah, you're going to get money faster. So in terms of criticism for this deck, I think there's some interesting things that you could already change. Consume is a lot of influence, and I think it's important for the economy suite of this deck that you find Consume pretty quickly. But a lot of times the best practice we saw in a lot of the Freedom decks, again, the ones that won Worlds back in the day, is they would run a single Consume, but then they would run something like self-modifying code. And I think that makes a lot of sense because self-modifying code is less influence than Consume, and you can go get your Consume if you need it. But if you already have your Consume, you can make it into anything that you need at instant speed. Whether it's an Imp, that's really good. Whether it's a Botulus when you need it, which the deck should have Botulus, or it's your singleton Amakua. So I think there's a lot of reasons why, like, you could probably drop 1 Consume and then play a flexible card like self-modifying code. Heck, even into the depths to some extent might make sense. And you can actually end up saving a fair bit of influence. I think another thing too is we're on 2 Docklands Pass, and inherently, like, I think Imp is good HQ pressure. I don't know if you need more HQ pressure, but the multi-axis on this is quite nice. But I think too, have a unique card that's not like the most game-defining thing is another thing that you could probably shave some influence off. If you really want the HQ pressure, I think you can run a Docklands Pass, maybe you run some jailbreaks instead, or Docklands Pass and then a single legwork, which also costs 2 influence, and legwork is just a card that doesn't see a lot of play, but it's probably still really worth playing. People are still playing Spin Doctor and Rashida, so Burst Draw is a thing you can punish. I think that also makes a lot of sense. Or do you want to go a bit further and even play something like inherently it's not that hard to play Awake Implant also in this thing, considering you want to run HQ or R&D consistently to Imp stuff. This is more multi-axis on top of it. I think if you want to save another influence and get this in there, maybe you can do that as well. I think there's a lot of things you can change about this deck to tune it in a way that I think I would like. Bad no one brought Apex to AMT. Banhar Apex is a bit slow. I thought Asari's rush Atomless and went 3-1. Nice. Choose always be running for every match, which worked except for against Ag Infusion. Yeah, Ag Infusion is going to be a hard one to do that because a lot of their ice has a lot of subroutines, but yo, well played. Okay, other things. The thing that I worry about this deck too is like we might not have enough card draw. It's kind of hard to tell. In terms of card draw on the deck, we have the Lou ability, which can actually be pretty consistent if we're firing off our imps every turn. But then it's just like Steel Skin Scarring and Moshing, and that might be it. Again, we're playing 5 more cards than we need to, but I'm not sure what you meant to do. Like, I do think playing a single Dream Net in just about any Anarch deck makes a lot of sense. If we want to make 1 run a turn anyways, why not get a card draw for it? Whether you want to play Earthrise Hotel on top of that, I think it's fine. I think there's also an argument whether or not we need to play 2 Scrubber. Inherently, we're playing Infinite Imp, and we can always use our Imp to be able to battle against the decks that are running a lot of horizontal strategies, a lot of assets and upgrades. But Scrubber is nice. It's just like, I don't know, it might be extra. It might not be a thing that I want to play 2 of. Maybe we can just play 1 of and call it a day. I also do not think we need 3 Knobkierie. Generally, we play 3 of, it means that we want to play this in every opening hand, and this card is very expensive and honestly doesn't do very much until everything else is set up. So I think there's a chance you're going to get away with playing 2 Knobkieries and playing a bit more draw, because I don't think it's very important that you get a Knobkierie down on turn 1 to like 4, more than it is you always get a Knobkierie every game, and so I think that makes sense. You can play Gachapons, you can play Deuces Wilds, there's a lot of like very standard common cards you can slot into this to like help this together. But I think currently in this iteration, we're playing too much redundancy that we can probably optimize out by playing filtering and saving influence, because I do not love playing 3 of a console, 2 of the Docklands Pass, or 2x Consume. I feel like those are things I would probably change, but I think this will work. I don't get the Banhar Apex. Like, doesn't Endless Hunger do the same thing with less setup and money? No, Endless Hunger is actually really quite bad. So Endless Hunger forces you to trash cards to break end the run subroutines. And there's 2 problems with this. Firstly, if you look at just about any Netrunner deck, the majority of subroutines in that deck do not end the run. They usually do something either more important for their setup or just do something interesting and different, right? Look at a Drafter. You can't let Drafter fire consistently. Obviously, anything that gives you tags, let alone any ice that does not strictly say end the run, that doesn't count as an end the run subroutine. So, right, if you're playing competitively against HB decks, you're expecting some amount of Fairchild 3.0. All these subroutines are brutal. Yeah, you can click through this thing on click 1, but this is not an end the run subroutine, albeit it says end the run. Now, these sort of weird pseudo end the run subroutines don't show up as much as they used to, but there are a lot of reasons why Endless Hunger just doesn't get you there, because this is a very limited thing, and very few decks, like, we can look at any competitive deck, right, and see how few of the actual ice have the text on it. And generally, it's nicer to have a Banhar that goes through any ice, right? Like, you're face checking or you're rezzing ice just to do 2 net damage. It makes it such a different thing as opposed to like getting a Drafter off. Right, like well, obviously this PE deck is not a good example because everything on it says net damage, but like look at the deck that won. In terms of the ice, how much says end the run? One of these says end the run, so you're gonna take 4 net damage into that. That's not great. Magnet ends the run, Thimblerig ends the run, but Vampire Nasa doesn't. That's 4 net damage immediately to go through with Banhar. It's a hard matchup. Anemone doesn't end the run. It's a problem. It's going to happen anyways. Muncie, probably a bad example. But if you want to look at an HB deck, like mid-range HB, PD, sort of whatever, not a lot of this stuff actually ends the run. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. I do think that Endless Hunger would be a way stronger, admittedly maybe too strong, if it was kind of worded a bit different. Something like Lucky Charm would be a lot more kind to it, where this says like prevent a Corp ability from ending the run. If that was the case, there's a lot more subroutines you can get through, but like inherently Netrunner is not a game about stacking end the runs in front of servers. That's just not how the game works, outside of like I think the 2012 core set, and even then that probably doesn't get you there all the time. All right, there's some recommendations here. Firstly, -1 Citadel, not as worried about tags. -1 Hippo, +2 Botulus. We didn't talk about Hippo, mind you. This is a big card in the format, in Standard. It allows you to trash ice, and trashing ice is good. We also didn't talk about our bin breakers, but they're pretty common. You see this in every Anarch list. These are the cards that we mosh away, and we get them installed, and we're kind of good to go from there. I have no idea why they haven't eroded Endless Hunger. It's not like Apex is anything close to playable, even in casual. I don't think people need Apex to be competitive, but I think they just don't want erotic cards like that. Like, they'd rather just, like, I'd be more excited if they printed another Apex card, right? That was similar. On top of that, Endless Hunger takes up 4 MU, so you're already going to run into issues where all the Apex decks are like, my best card is 3x Reaver, and you're like, well, you can't do that anymore. Sorry. I'm also so confused. I thought Earthrise Hotel would be in this deck because it's called Hotel Trashing Loup, and that threw me for a loop because it's like, okay, we're playing 3 Earthrise Hotel. That's why we named that. But yeah, I get it. I don't know if it would be too strong being 4 MU and all, but yeah, being immune to ETR is definitely strong. Probably not a great errata. Yeah, it's also like a frustrating thing too. I don't know. Sitting across from an Endless Hunger and you're trying to, like, I don't know. It's probably fine. It encourages people to play non-run ice, which is generally the more interesting ice in the game anyways. 3 for a Lou. A Hotel Trashing Lou. Renee. Renee. Cool. Yeah. Let's give it a shot though. I think it's fun. Our multi-axis, we have a single Stargate. Again, if we play a self-modifying code, that's another way to get to Stargate. But our multi-axis, sorry, we have a Dawkins Pass. We have 2, in fact. But our multi-axis is going to be like pinging them down. I think also this deck just inherently has less economy than most of the other Anarch lists that I think have too much economy. It's hard to tell why that is. Like, how do we have less economy? Do we have the same amount of econ? We're not running companions. Like, I think dropping a scrubber for a companion. Oh, we should make the changes that were said. Like, I think that makes a lot of sense too. So they said drop a Hippo, drop the Citadel, play 2 Botulus. Botulus might use a virus too. Yeah, 45 cards. Yeah, you can play 40. You should play 40, but this one's 45. I've been there. I will not cast the first stone. So many times I've made a 45 card Zaya deck and I'm just like, F it. I can't figure this out. I want to play more cards so I get my values worth of my card purchase. Oh, sorry. I want to play less product. Okay. You can always use Knobkierie to charge your consume if you're low on credits. Yeah, totally. But like, admittedly, if that's the case, you might as well charge your imp, right? Because it's just going to go there to there. But yeah, being able to charge anything, like charging Amakua, really also quite good. Charging consume, it's okay. It's okay to fine. But charging imp generally charges your consume in the long run. So whatever. No, Puemo seems weird. The deck has 30 installable cards. Most decks do. Yeah, but Puemo is such a low cost. I'm pretty sure dropping both scrubbers for 2 Puemos is probably fine. I would drop a Puemo and a Dreamnet. We'll see. Yeah, I feel like if we're playing against an acid deck, like having Knobkierie Imp is already like such a good thing as long as we can survive the early game and not get a hard-hitting news, that we probably don't need the 2 scrubbers. But yeah, maybe I'll be proven wrong. Hey, Izzy, how's it going? I saw you signed up for the GNK, but then had to pull out and I got bummed out. But hey, it's a Sunday. I get it. There's stuff. How you doing? When a friend of mine is playing a 40 card idea and I so much as mentioned the idea that they could play 41st card, they say, but that's their superpower. It's weird. Like playing 46 feels so much. Obviously, I think it's percentages, like fractional percentages. But playing 46 is not as bad as playing 41. What did I miss about Deck of the Week? Yo, Jeff, how's it going? Did you stream last night? I feel like I didn't get the thing. Kalana also, how's it going? Best of luck. I don't like that the deck is 45 cards, and I don't like that there's way too much redundancy for pieces that don't have to be redundant. But against a sports metal matchup, we're actually probably okay, because this is the sort of matchup, if they are on like fast break, stuff like that, we can actually end up imping their agendas, which denies them the sports metal ability, because again, imp is one of the first ways that we can actually like not score agendas that we access. We can just imp them. Our opening hand, we have the Dawkins Pass. Honestly, feeling okay about that. Maybe there's a reason to play 2 of them when you want HQ aggression turn 1. But I feel like Imp, Docklands, Dirty Laundry HQ is like probably good enough. Paperclip, maybe to deal with Hoggins early. Maybe they're playing Meridians. Maybe we just eat the Meridians. And then Hippo is, it is what it is. What's fine. Brother-in-law was visiting, was a nice visit, but during my stream time, I have not heard you speak positively about like family besides your partner. I'll just be honest, man. It's always been miserable. Family taking me to Buffalo this weekend was disappointing to have to miss it, but bless like all the players and weekends for you to logistics. Thank you, Izzy. Enjoy your hanging out with your family. I've heard Buffalo is better than, I think it is. But we'll be running other stuff, so can't feel too bad about it. This deck also might be running Mavirus, which is a bit of a bummer. I think we can just like imp. Yeah, we can just send it. I don't know what this is actually. I kind of want to imp this because if it's like the 1/5, sorry, the tranquility. We'll start here. Let's go. I like Buffalo. I think Buffalo's way cooler than I thought it was because most of my experience in Buffalo has been at like a bus station and like you think you're gonna die. Rashida will pay for that. And it's a Hendrick. I feel like we can take 1 core damage. But what's the rest of our turn, right? Like, is it actually that good? We're going to imp this. Yeah, that's fine. Buffalo, 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 and so on. Yeah. The Buffalo bus station, like every American bus station, is a pit of despair. There's some real bad ones. I don't think I've been to, you're right, to a good American bus station. I think Buffalo's quite bad. What is the capital of New York that nobody thinks is the capital of New York? That one also sucked. Albany? Albany is awful. I don't think it, like, this is the thing is we have an early Knobkierie, and I don't think it's worth playing the Knobkierie this turn. I think we're just going to check one of these. Yeah, Albany. Yeah, you knew. Yeah, Albany is, the Albany bus station is also frightening, especially at night. It's a Maryland campaign. We can imp this or we can pay out of pocket. I'm not sure how good the economy is in this deck is, right? We're on 3 Liberated, which we don't want to play. Fermentor we'll want to play, but I don't think we want to can pay 3 here if we're going to actually commit to the Knobkierie. So I'm going to imp that to get a card and a credit. Okay, now we got Consume, so we can get that down and start running a bit more. Eventually, we're going to need to get a Knobkierie down. It's a Mega Free. Unfortunately, that's the kind of card we actually do want to imp. So maybe we're playing this wrong. And then last we can run to server 4. I think I'm going to check it. If it's a Hendrick, we take a core damage, but whatever. It's an Eleviga. Okay, well, they're definitely a fast break deck, so we're going to have to find those on centrals and imp them. They can draw last click, though, when we hit an agenda. Albany, baby, my hometown. Damn, defend Albany because we're not giving it a good platform here. We do have 3 nice train stations in the country, so I've heard. Is Lou the new Trash Panda? Yeah, maybe. And like, you can just play Freedom. You don't get the free card draw. You could also play 45 cards. I think we have to run the Spin Doctor first, but unfortunately, we're going to put down the Knobkierie and we're just going to have like no money. But they're probably going to trash this themselves. Otherwise, we get to trash it for free with Imp. Why are you so many random American bus stations? Because a lot of what happens in Ontario or even Quebec is that you take like buses in your youth to be like, let's go down and see Boston or let's go see New York City. So you end up taking the bus because you're like, 20, you're in college or whatever. So you end up in like weird bus stops. Place one. Oh, they're letting us have this. Okay. That makes sense. Yep. Okay. So we can click this for money. I think we do. I do think we need to get accesses and I'm worried. I think this is most likely Meridian, but if this is like a, what's it called? An early, the big guy, the barrier guy, Hagen. Wow. Yeah, that's a problem for us too. So I think we're going to drop a bit. We're going to get the Fermentor down. I'm actually going to mosh. Man, Decklist's Pass is like on the verge of being really good. I think we like HQ pressure here, but we're running a second one, right? I think Fermentor is worth playing. I think we can mosh next turn after we get a draw. Thank you. Mara, you knew. We have a giant performing arts center called the Egg because it looks like an egg just right in the middle of the city. Albany sounds good now. I like Egg. All right, they ice up everything. So if we want to face check, it's disastrous. So luckily we don't have to. They might be a slower deck. They're probably on Biotic or Audacity, probably both. So I do think we just moshing this hand. It's the fastest thing we can do. We can also run archives and it basically gives us a consume counter. Is that good? Or a fermenter counter? No, it's not really good. But like we can't face check until we can deal with what's it called? Amakua though is good. Amakua, we can run archives and give it to 2 virus counters. It's only a matter of time before a virus does show up because I think these lists do play them. But if we want to do that, we want to do it on a click. Now this is again where like, not that we drew a scrubber, but just having a Poemo, something that gives us economy in the background is really good. We can draw again, or if we don't draw, we put Amakua run archives, we get Amakua at 2 strength. I don't think that matters. I think if we run archives, hit this, we basically spend 2 clicks to gain 4 credits. We're running a second, but you got 45 cards. It's practically a singleton. Nice. This doesn't seem right. But like, this is the fastest way we can get money quickly. And we need to break a Hagen. It's what, 9 credits? Yeah, that's probably bad. I think maybe we just play the daily cast, put the money on the fermenter instead, and crack the fermenter next turn. That's probably cheaper overall. Okay, so at least we can check this and not have to face check. I think we'll start by running server 7 because it's less likely to be the Hendrik, and then we'll run server 6 on like click 3. Maybe it's a, what's it called? So we can't imp this. This is a Nightmare Archive. I think we'll add it. I feel like this is the sort of matchup that as long as we can get accesses, we just trash all their win conditions and we both lose slowly, or eventually we win. But we'll do that. So if this is a Hendrik, we can always install the daily cast first. If it's a Managarm, though, we can't, but I'm surprised if they do a Managarm. There's also a chance that this is Giardono, and a Giardono, we need 6. That's how we pronounce that. So I'm going to go check this right now. We might lose a click for this. I wish you could imp Nightmare Archives or have some way to tech against it. As soon as you can do that, you can imp like Snare and stuff. So Rashida will pay for that. That gives us a card and credit. We'll put the virus on Consume. This is a Hendrik. Okay, so we were punished there. So we're going to lose all our remaining clicks again. We don't want to take core damage. We can eventually take 1 core damage. And I think this we might as well imp it. I don't think we need to be greedy on our imp counters. And now if they purge, like, it seems good. But if they purge, like, that's a slow thing for a fast deck to do. So we're pretty happy. Give us back Data Dealer. It's like wild. The value of negative points changes once you get a card like Data Dealer or Artist Colony that's playable. Right? Like this is a very narrow time in the meta where there's been no card that does exactly that. All right, well, we have a Scrubber, but like I don't even think it's worth playing. I don't think it's worth playing. The early Knobkierie is actually way better than I thought it was. So Mega Pre, we're gonna imp that. Yeah, like we just don't want to steal that. Admittedly, we could, but I'm just gonna try and not like lose the fast break. This is the Nightmare Archive. Data Deal dropping a Nightmare Archive could be Ultimate Chef's Kiss. It was good. Like you played that. All right, so now they can shuffle that back in. Oh, they res the Maryland. They did. Okay. So I think we take 8 credits off of the Consume. And then we just play Daily Cast, and then we can face check Centrals next turn. Yeah, this is probably pretty good for us. The Shadow Net, the Shadow Net, the Shadow Net. I always forget about the Shadow Net Xren whenever we talk about forfeiting points cards. It's because that one actually did not, like, it saw play. Obviously, it got banned. It saw a lot of play. But, like, for a very small window, that, like, the little kind of needle groove it made on my mind, you know, it's only so big. All right, we're going to check here. We can respect Fairchild 3. We can respect Hagen. Those are the things we're worried about. And they definitely have stuff in hand. We want to trash combo pieces. Yeah, this is why we ran. Again, we wish we had a Hippo. We only have 1 more now in 30 cards. So we're going to have to click through this because this is really bad. Gotta wonder who's buying a Nightmare Archives from a Data Dealer. I think there's a lot. Yeah, F that. Get out of our house. Place a virus counter, throw out an MK Ultra. Seems like a good turn. I think people's nightmares are probably worth a lot of money. Oh, yeah. Like, I don't even think that's, like, edgy. Top sales pitch? Are you kidding me? If I can tell you what everyone fears, again, edgy again, that's like just as good as what everyone likes. I feel like I could market better if I knew what you were afraid of than what you would actually care about. Damn, I'm 14 and this is deep. Let's go face check this one too. If they res another Fairchild, we're happy. It's okay. So this one we're not taking as negative points. I think we can afford to break this for 3 credits a pop, considering our money is not actually being forced in any other direction. But yeah, we don't want to take this into our hand. Virus counter, yeah, just infinite imp. Elevagao, imp it. F it. Like, we're winning by making them not win. Like, you know how hard it is to score out without fast break, right? Like, this is all we're gonna do. They can make great Halloween specials. Nato, how's it going? Right, this is all we're trying to do. We're just gonna run once. Well, actually, we're gonna run twice with Stargate. But I don't think we're in a rush to do such a thing. I do think getting down the Amakua is actually reasonable. The problem is that we can't run archives. But I do think getting down the Amakua is actually quite okay. I think we can do Stargate. This is reveal top. It will give us a consume counter. So yeah, why not? This is a nightmare and a half. Yeah, Stargate Fermenter. Yeah, I think we're going to Stargate for sure because it also gives us a consume. I think you're meant to say consume, right? Because this is us trashing. You always have to watch out who trashes. This is when you trash. So some cards force the Corp to trash. So Spin Doctor, Biotic, Maryland. You can not have the Spin Doctor. Okay, take 6, go. right? Like this is nightmare situation. This is the meta. Like this, if I'm not mistaken, the worlds that this sort of deck won, like it was a freedom deck, mind you. It was this sort of meta where like sports metal was good. Sports metal has been competitively good for a really long time. So they drew into a biotic labor. I don't think we care about that. So we're going to run R&D for 3. Then we're going to Stargate R&D. I feel like we want to do it in that order. We know the top is a biotic. I think we want to no, we know it's a Maryland. I think Consume. It's a soup. Yeah. I think we're going to start with the imp run, and then we're going to do the, what's it called, run. It also makes sense to put the Amakua down because we can charge the Amakua, but I think we need to Knobkierie the imp. And we're going to be trash on every run, so there's actually a chance that we have a non-bow with the Amakua here. Because I feel like charging the imp is like more important than charging anything else. So we're spending a 6 a turn and getting 4 back. So eventually this will catch up to us. So this is Maryland. Oh, actually we get more money back because of this. Imp that. Yeah. Bummer. We can't dirty laundry. So we actually might have wanted to Stargate first, but this gives us more information about our Stargate. So we Stargate in, we spend 3, and our turn is going to get repetitive really soon until they like do something cool. Oh, Vitruvius Drafter. Interestingly enough, the right thing here to trash is the Drafter. Because if they draw Vitruvius, we honestly don't care. We don't care. I think we can just gain the Fermenter. I don't think we have to be precious about this. And then just put down a daily cast. Yeah. So now they have a Biotic and Vitruvius. If they want to do that, it's going to cost them 7. They get a refund. It's on 5 credits. And there's a Biotic Vitruvius on top of R&D. Once we know that there's enough points in archives to win, which at this point in the game, there is going to be 1, 2, 4. Yeah, they just have to score out. If this is anything besides Luminal, they're in a really bad spot. Oh, it's a Vitruvius. So now if they draw, the Vitruvius goes to HQ. So they have the Vitruvius in hand, which means we can just dirty laundry and we have to keep going. And they actually have to Audacity up to 7 points. So yeah, let's go. We can like, they might rush us. It depends on whether they draw the Audacities or not. At this point, hopefully we manually draw. And again, we could be playing 5 less cards into the, what's it called, Hippo. And if we Hippo through the Fairchild, like the game is totally different. Honestly, Sports deserves this. I hear you. But yeah, trashing stuff is really, really powerful against Sports. I feel bad against Freedom decks a lot of times. Like sometimes it's just rough. It's an Arella. They honestly can draw that, but the problem is if we want to imp this just so we see more cards anyways. Right? Like that's not going to do much for them because they can't, well, they can fast break actually. Yeah, we definitely want to trash that. It's not going to be as powerful as if we had 7 cards here. Sansan, Meridian, Biotic Labor. So I'm going to let them draw. We'll trash the Biotic next turn. We don't want them to have more ice, that's for sure. And then we have 2 clicks left here. I think we can Steel Skin. We're trying to find a Hippo. Okay, none of these cards matter. This is technically more money on a single card, and we can throw out a Paperclip, and we're going to just do this for a minute. Want to spend 3 to get one of those Vitruvius that you saw instead of daily casts? Because we don't want to steal agendas. Because so much of their deck is about the power of this card called Fast Break, and Fast Break scales off the more agendas we have in our score area. It also allows them to draw 2 or gain 2. So like all we're going to try and do is avoid stealing agendas for the whole game until we try and win by running archives in 1 or they deck out. So we knew they drew into Sansan and they have a Biotic on top, right? All we're trying to do is not win. We're just trying to make them lose, which causes us to win. Again, eventually all Corps lose. Don't ask again. Thank you. Right? Like they deck out. Auto toggle oh yeah, that's a really good idea to auto toggle consume. Biotic imp it. Place 1. How do you do that? Ah, very good. Always. All right, Stargate. And we're in. Yeah, this sort of like play pattern, which seems pretty counterintuitive. Like, what do you mean you don't want to steal agendas? Like all this is response to these sort of decks that scale off agenda points. Also like stock buyback, which might be in the deck. Like there's so many reasons why you just don't want to steal stuff. All right, I think we're just gonna draw once. We just want to find Botulus on HQ is actually good enough because we can get 1 run a turn. Actually Botulus on Meridian's fine too, but again, we're not being taxed out on our economy, so we can get away with it. This is the first time you make a run, so it's not like you can oversell the Knobkierie to get something. This could be a Sansan. We have to check these. Them feeding us agendas is actually really important. So we know the top of the deck. The top of the deck is Sprint. I don't think we care about that. They have a hedge fund in hand. They have a Sansan in hand. So we're going to check these. We're going to imp an agenda. We're going to trash with money anything that's not an agenda. So if we see a Sansan, we'll pay 5. It's a mega free. We're just going to imp that. Okay. So we know in archives, there's 1, 2, 3 points. That would take us to 6. This could be a Nightmare Archives. That's fine. feel like semifinals from 2019 Worlds wrong. Exactly. That's a bit trivia. So unfortunately, we're stealing this one. So that's bad. But if we Stargate and we get an agenda point, we win. Because now we have 3 and there's 4, 5, 6 in the bin. So we just have to get a Stargate off, hit a point, and we win this turn. But yeah, they have to feed us agendas because they're aware Fast Break just doesn't do anything. Break 3. If we find an agenda, we win. No agenda. Okay. Fairchild 3, we don't want them to have. And I don't think we really need to hit consume if they purge. Like, I think it's fine with us. We're making 4 a drip a turn. So yeah, like, we don't want points. Fast Break for them actually can do something pretty meaningful. So I think if anything, we actually might want to run HQ and get an access. Because I feel like, we can't imp. I feel like, yeah, Docklands is very reasonable because we want to run next turn, but like there's a chance they can do something cool with Fast Break. The thing is, like, we know they're on Sandsend, they can't install it. So like this is the best card from our hand. And next turn we can run HQ. We know that they drew into Sprint, which they can do for pieces, and then we can challenge them with the Docklands. Oh, Biotic, wow. Install, advance, advance, advance. So we know their hand is Sand. I think, oh, there was a third Vitruvius. Okay, game 2. So we actually know a lot what their hand is. They have a Sprint and Sand in their hand. We know the top of the deck is Rashida. Rashida for them is a really bad draw, so we're actually not that interested in imping it. So again, if we just Stargate and find an agenda, we win. So I'm just going to start with the Stargate, and then from there we can run HQ. Stargate also gets you around all the defensive 5/3s. Hey, Ryan, I don't actually know if they're on any. They might be on like 1 copy of Ikwa. Some of the decks don't run them as consistently as anymore. Maybe on a food or 2, but those are pseudo defensive. But yeah, we can imp the ones for sure. Like, we don't have to steal them. Nightmare Hyperloop extension. So that should be, if we look at archives here, we're on 3, and then there's 4, 5, 6, 7 in archives. So we just win. Again, don't steal agendas. Run trash Rashida, run trash with Imp and Stargate. I feel like we're okay with them drawing Rashida, and we're in no rush, so we can get away with it. And of course, you choose the order. It looks like there was another one in there. That's a Nightmare matchup for sports. And you choose the order you access, so you obviously don't steal the Nightmare first, let alone you could just take core damage on the winning run. It doesn't matter. Does this deck not have Mad Dash? No, this deck doesn't have Mad Dash. That's a Nightmare Sword. Yeah, that's the hard one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's the game plan for this deck, is about basically you go out of your way for the first couple turns to literally give the runner agendas. Like, you're happy if they steal your Mega Priest, stuff like that. And there's a chance that on turn 1 we could have just like respected it fully with Imp and like Knobkierie and tried to steal nothing at all. But it's still in 2 agendas, 3 agendas is probably fine. As soon as we have 4 things in our score area, like, we gets a bit scary. Yeah, you just have to let it rip. Or get me good with the triple install. Yeah, them installing multiple cards is a way around this, because we can only imp once a turn. So you play like some sort of thing. What's it called? Was that NBN identity that allowed you to only steal 1 a turn back in the day? It feels like that. Yeah. Yeah, it's a nightmare matchup. It's a nightmare. If you really think there's going to be sportsmental a lot, this is one of the best decks. And again, you don't have to play Lou as much as Lou actually was pretty good card draw. If you play Freedom, it has the ability now to trash operations, let alone anything that has a cost on it. And you can also just play DreamNet, and you basically build your own Lou. And then you play 45 cards anyway. So there's a big chance that this is just maybe on 45 better in Lou. Or sorry, in Freedom. Thanks for the game. Cheers. Harpsichord. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, Harpsichord is fun. For what it's worth, Thule gives off some mild Harpsichord vibes, because like runners generally don't try to steal 2 agendas in a turn, as much as like that's not the case. Okay, so we only played 1 game with that deck, and I think that deck will look very different when you're not playing against Sportsmetal for obvious reasons, but I feel like we have a pretty thick curriculum today, trying to go through all of Startup and show like a good deck for every faction and talk about it. That we're probably just going to leave it at that. But otherwise, that's a quite a cool deck. I do think, again, we talked about the changes we would make. You can play just Freedom, and it'd probably be interesting as well. But overall, if you haven't played that sort of archetype with Consume and Knobkierie and that engine, it is immensely powerful, and it feels really quite fun. The card draw and Lou is not nothing. No, the card draw and Lou is really actually reasonable. I just think like DreamNet, if you get the one of DreamNet, like it's kind of similar. Admittedly, you also get credits too, but like no, Lou's ability is totally fine, as much as we're discarding the 40 minimum thing. Harp Mwanza, man. Mwanza shouldn't exist. Get rid of Mwanza. Dave, you're back. God damn it. For real? That's a joke. That's an absolute joke. We played against Sportsmetal, went really well, because that deck does do well against Sportsmetal. Cool deck. You can watch all my very, very harsh criticism, and I missed the games. Yeah. Hopefully your meeting was good. That's it. That's a wrap, y'all. I will see you next week. All right, let's talk about some startup. Harp Seamless? Oh, I never tried that. I don't think harpsichord was ever legal. The ship's passing in the night, yeah. It's sad how badly my boy Edward Kim has been left behind by the power creep. I don't think so. I don't think it's sad. Like, okay, I've said this many times on the channel before. I don't think it's power creep, or I don't think power creep is an issue if the thing that being crept past is not conventionally played consistently, right? Like, if they just make super magnet, like, oh, we just reprinted magnet, it has 2 more strength, maybe that's a problem considering things will just be different. But like Edward Kim saw next to no play besides being a niche rebirth target. So I think making something that is Kim tasting but is exciting to play is a good design direction, because unfortunately nobody played Kim and nobody got to experience the coolness that Kim potentially was. So I'm on board. I'm honestly totally on board, right? Ed Kim was never good. Yeah, Ed Kim was never good. And by the time that people were like really excited to play Ed Kim because NBN matchups kind of got out of hand, it was like the sort of matchup where like AR enhanced security was being played turn 1, and then you realize, shit, I run HQ and I access an operation and I have to give myself a tag. It came to the point that like Edward Kim decks had to learn that you had to run archives click 1 so that you could access an operation just to dull your own ability. Because if they scored an AR enhanced security and you were Kim, it was an absolute weight you tied to your own ankle and then you went for a run. Like, it was the worst thing you could do, that you went out of your way to access operations in archives so you didn't have to trash them. Yeah, Kim had a really weird window. Edward Kim was a meme rebirth. Yeah, Edward Kim was often the wrong rebirth target that seemed really good. It would be like, oh, that's such a good thing to do. But it was like, Omar was probably still better. Yeah, Ed Kim was a rebirth target you talked yourself into and it was wrong almost all the time. Exactly it. Yeah, it seemed so good until it turns out it wasn't. Kim Stick is giving me good smiles. Where you would always get yelled at if you rebirth Ed Kim because it's a trap. There's like so many conversations, I think, like on Stim Slack of people berating each other for like, I rebirthed into Kim into the NBN matchup. I has a link. It's not that bad. And then it turns out it actually was never really good, unfortunately. DJ Quetzal vibes. Oh man, DJ Quetzal is also like the next meme. Like Quetzal fits into the camp of so rarely being the correct target that it's almost always wrong to DJ Quetzal. Almost always. But there's worse things you can DJ into. It's just like, that's the one that like you feel the sirens call to kind of get you there. Okay, news. We had some news and then we closed the tabs. In short, it was the first accelerated beta test last weekend. Congratulations. It was a big turnout. There was 30 folks playing Netrunner last weekend. Again, maybe we can get from Sengrin can maybe say here specifically, but right now the VOD is up on Null Signal Netrunner. Shout out to Cephalopod who streamed the event, Cranked, and also doing commentary. We were there for only 2 rounds. And it was really fun. The games we commentated were quite cool. So if you want to check that out, that was a pretty great tournament. This will maybe end up on YouTube at some point. But check that out. Shout outs again. There'll be more of these coming up over, it seems like, every month, which is a really nice way to get into organized play if you'd like to, especially on a very international level, which is sick. VOD just got posted to YouTube like a couple seconds ago. Nice. YouTube.com/project Nisei. It still shows up as Project Nisei. I don't know if the vanity can ever be changed, but yeah, it's here 4 minutes ago. I think we know what Jeff might be up to. Meta, what a pronunciation. There's no way around it. It's meta because it's accelerated beta test. Whatever. Of course, also speaking of tournaments, I don't know why I closed the tab, but we're running a tournament on Sunday. It's a startup tournament. It's totally free to enter. If you want to get involved, we have some prize support already. There's 12 people registered just on this website. You don't have to register on this website, but you need to be in the thing at 10:30 Eastern to register itself. But that's really cool. Also, if you're watching this and you want to do some commentary, if you're not playing the event, you want to TO, you want to do any of this sort of stuff, hit me up because we're going to be streaming the event, but I have to stream and TO at the same time, which is probably slightly more difficult than I think. And slightly is an exaggeration, especially because I haven't done it before. So it'll be fine. But yeah, I'm stoked for Sunday. It's going to be good fun. If you're in Montreal, there's also a standard event on Saturday at L'Abyss. So we'll see you there too. Okay. let's talk about some startup decks. I think that was the question, is what sort of decks can we play? Say that maybe you're a newer player and you don't know, you don't have a deck to play. What sort of ideas, what sort of things you're expecting in startup, what you need to play around. So we're going to take some time to going through all the factions really quickly and show some deck lists, not our deck lists per se, but deck lists we're going to find together on Netrunner DB and just highlight them. We're also going to talk about different factions on a basis to basis, what you have to play around, what's worth knowing, and what's keeping in mind, what's worth keeping in mind when you're playing on Sunday. Again, I don't think Sunday is, by definition, like, we haven't advertised this to be a super competitive event with like ridiculous top prizing and an invitational and all this other nonsense. So like, if you're not a competitive player, if this is your first event ever, I recommend you to get involved, because I've no doubt there's going to be a whole bunch of folks that feel the same way as you do and are using this as a nice way to meet some new people and breach the kind of seemingly impassable wall of organized play, which I 100% recommend is one of the most important things you can do, because playing Netrunner against strangers is like the coolest thing ever. That's how you kind of see the world through other people's eyes, and then you make fun of them for playing a 45 card Loup deck, Dave. All right, let's go look at some lists. I'd love to join as a local startup tournament in LA on the same day. Ryan, that's totally cool. We'll have other ones, and I always recommend support local before supporting ill local. So well done. As someone who has streamed a TO at the same time, it's doable but not recommended. Yeah, I feel like we're going to come to that we're like, I don't want to say that it's going to be a mess on Sunday, but like, there's a chance the VOD is not going to be as great. The event is going to be great. Maybe the VOD's not going to be great. Unless we get commentary support, but I'm like looking for commentary support 4 days before. So like, organization hasn't been my strongest skill. We'll get better. Do you want to help with one or the other of those? I feel like, Jeff, I might have to talk to you just like to get an idea of what that sort of stuff looks like. Just like, I'm going to do a fake tournament on Cobra to see what it looks like. I assume it's straightforward, but I think I'd rather have someone on mic just so that if there is a judge call, it's not dead air. I don't believe you changed the vanity anymore in YT. Now they're all have introduced handles. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. I like the null signal handle. I see what you mean. Yeah. Someone who streamed a TO, excuse me. I'd love to, excuse me. Okay, we got through it. Okay, let's talk about startup. We're going to start on the Corp side. No, we're going to start on the runner side. And I think startup is actually like really not intimidating. As intimidating as it is, I think you can reduce it away to very minimal choices. That sounds really not interesting, but I promise you it is. So we're going to go side runner. We're going to go down here on the search terms. You can go to rotation, and startup is the top option. And we're going to do sort by faction. We're going to go type. Oh, you don't see drop down menus, so this looks ugly, but we're going to pick identity, and then we're going to go full card images. That's it. Okay. So there's 4 for each ID that you're going to expect. Startup sounds really not interesting, Rocky. Startup's good. It's just, I do think that the amount of decisions you have to make is not that intimidating. Like, it's actually kind of hard to make a bad deck in startup because the card pool is relatively powerful and relatively small. So I don't know where we're going to start. Let's start with criminal. We're going to look at the criminal card pool. Currently, there are 4 criminal IDs you can play. And let me tell you, they're all kind of same flavors of the same idea, which is make a lot of accesses and get paid doing them at the same time. There's only small nuances around all of them. Inherently, when you're playing against a criminal, generally they're going to pressure all central servers, especially text like Sable. You know, you want to make your mark, it's going to be randomly something. So you want to ice up everything. I think if you want to ice up any server better than any other server when you're playing against criminal, go for HQ. And the big reason is the Wake implant. We're going to pull up all the criminal cards in a second, but it's just to let you know, whatever ID your opponent plays across from you, they're going to be playing, I think, 60 to 70% the same cards. So playing against criminal is more of a more important idea to figure out, more than it is to figure out how to play against Ken intelligently. Like, that doesn't matter. The last 30% is not important. The first 70%, that's more important. Figure that out, then we'll worry about the last 30%. So criminals are going to be getting value from running central servers, so you need to make that more difficult. A big part of that is getting your good ice positioned quite well. Against Steve, I think that's very obvious. It says the word HQ on it. You're going to get a lot of HQ pressure. All of them are also going to hit HQ pretty heavily. But getting something big and making HQ hard to run very cheaply is going to be very important. Let's keep this open, and I'm going to open up all of the startup card pool so we can just look at all of this. I love some decks at work. Wait, what do you mean? Hey, check this. What's good? Let's go with some Essa and do irreparable harm to ourselves. I feel like the Essa startup decks are pretty good. We're definitely going to play some stuff. We're going to just start on high level stuff, and then I'm going to ask chat and be like, oh, we want to see this, and then we'll do that. But I'm just want to try and keep it relatively high level. So go faction, criminal. Again, sorry, you don't see drop down menus. We'll do rotation, startup, all cards. Yeah, by type, images. I just realized the catalyst is on Nova. Yeah, they're the same person. Pasta, how's it going? Okay. You sound like a good coworker. It's timely. I just finished building a starter deck for each faction to leave at work. I wanted the decks to be fun, but also represent different archetypes. Oh, nice. I see what you mean now. Unrelated, I saw a TMB playthrough of Dart who looks dope. I never knew. Oh, Dart is really cool. I think Dart is one of the coolest. I really enjoyed Dart. As convoluted as flipping the map is, Dart is really fun. Like literally leave for work with mates to pick up and jam. I think having like standalone decks is kind of the way I participate in a bunch of card games that I enjoy, where we just have pre-made decks for each faction. And I think that's a great way to play Netrunner, let alone most card games. So I like it a lot. Okay, criminal cards that you need to play around are worth noting. I think we can start with what's the most important. I think hardware actually is the most important for criminal. So when it comes to criminal, you're going to be playing around certain hardware. A lot of this stuff fires off HQ runs. I think the most important one here is above my head. This is Wake Implant. You're going to see this across factions. The idea is that when you're running HQ, you get power counters on this and you can use these power counters on R&D. That's how you're going to lose the game. Generally, that's most, if not all of the multi-axes that criminals are running. So you need to make sure that running HQ is not cheap and is not like very easy to do, because there's so much value through this. If they're running HQ for 2 credits to see a card, get with Zaya value, get Sable click back, like it's going to be an absolute nightmare. On top of that, we have Zenith chip. It's just good and another good reason to ice up just about everything, but that's kind of it. Make sure you're getting some good enough. It doesn't have to end the run, very importantly. It just has to be annoying enough to go through that the calculation doesn't make a lot of sense. You're also going to see Dawkins Pass, which more of the above. These are all cards that pressure any central server relatively well, specifically HQ, and then go from there. Everything else, just good additional value on top of that. You're going to play around it all the same. If they have Penny Shaver, again, if they can run archives for free to gain a credit and a click back with Sable, who gets a click back by running her mark, just putting a single ice there entirely changes the math. So just getting some taxing, doesn't have to end the run ice on archives, is really important. Getting something beefy on HQ is really important. If we go up to the events, I think there's only 2 that we really need to highlight. Some of this stuff is really flashy and really scary. It's hard to play around Reprise. It's just going to happen to you. That's fine. But I think one of the big ones you need to play around 100% is Inside Job. When you're playing around Criminal, most criminals, specifically Ken, who wants to play run events, is playing 3 of these, but most criminals are usually running somewhere between 1 and 2, and you just can't. It's very difficult to score behind a single piece of ice in the early game, because if they have an inside job, they just send an inside job and they're in. It's kind of like playing around Boomerang. If you played around Boomerang back in pre-rotation for startup, that's kind of it. As a criminal, if you want to build a remote server, you want to have your good ice in the back and then some cheap ice that you also have to res in the front, and that's how you're going to try and score out. And I think that covers like 90% of criminal, because nothing else is actually that important to play around. All the IDs are relatively the same. The breaker suite is like, okay, it's not great, it's okay. I think sneak door beta is maybe worth looking at, as much as you don't see this in every ID, but remember that if they can run archives, they can make that into an HQ run every once in a while. And then finally, the resources are like, whatever. All of them get you paid, and they're fine. But if you can make runs on central servers hard to do, it's hard to get good value from Info Bounty and Red Team, albeit they'll still be value. The one big card that we're coming back to is, of course, No Free Lunch. Tagging as an archetype is really powerful in startup as a whole. And this is the card that you're going to see across every single faction, because it's the only card in almost entire standard card pool, almost, but definitely in the whole startup card pool, that allows you to just like slough off a tag whenever you want. And tags are really, really strong. Inherently, Criminal is the one faction that has no access to recursion of their breakers. So if you run 2 of each breaker and early in the game you threw out your revolver, or your second one's empty, or you threw out your cat's cradle, your second one got trashed because you got tagged for retribution, you're going to have a bad time. So just make sure you're playing No Free Lunch in just about every deck, and then you kind of get huge advantages against everything else. But that's Criminal. It's like really straightforward. They get paid off running central servers. Make that hard. And if you make that hard, their whole economy engine has to come from somewhere else. And if they did not spend a lot of money importing liberated accounts, they're literally not going to have enough money to play the game. I think there's a shout out here for Cheswa, which is just one of the best economy cards in the whole game, as long as someone has a good reason to run central servers every single turn. 2 credits a turn on a single card is nonsense. So make sure that they can't do it. Steve is some soft recursion. Yeah, that's true. Steve is soft recursion, but it's very hard to make it so that Steve can make 2 program choices. But I wouldn't go out of the way to play Steve if you're worried about program destruction. I would just either play more programs or play more No Free Lunches. But Steve is not bad. Steve is totally fine. Yeah, Coffee's wild. Coffee's really wild. Hey, Dan, how's it going? Remember Boomerang and Inside Job? Hey, Macaroni, are doing some Netrunner 101? We're doing a startup 101. So we're trying to keep it simple, just go through every faction, just for people to have a basic understanding. And then we're going to look at some deck lists real quick. Again, if this doesn't make sense, let me know. We can jump straight to deck lists or talking about it. But as a high level idea, this is what I think. Again, we have a startup tournament on Sunday. You also have to play around 1x Inside Job in every faction in my last few games on JNet or anything to go by. Don't worry about that. That seems like more results oriented. I don't know what Sunday's going to look like, but I don't think that's actually the reality of competitive startup. I don't think you see a singleton inside job and everything. Startup tech for program destruction is playing boat. We're talking about Shaper. Yeah. I was surprised to see Tranquilizer in that list. I don't believe I've ever seen Trank in a game. I have seen it in a couple games. You don't see it a lot just because Criminal MU is kind of crowded and Chesva and other kind of utility cards take that slot a lot. But Tranquilizer actually was a meta card in like the standard meta maybe a year ago or one rotation ago or two rotations ago, excuse me, when Virus Max was a thing. That actually was a very important card that showed up on the toppest of tables. All right. Again, I feel like we're talking about hardware whenever we start. I think Shaper identities are actually a bit more of an interesting decision, but Shaper has a lot going for it. And by a lot, I mean, they have Endurance. And Endurance is just the best card in the entire startup meta, bar none. Everything it does for you is absolutely absurd. 8 credits is a heck of a lot, but if you can get this down for 8 credits in the early game, you don't have to produce a breaker, and then every run that you make, the first run of the turn, gives you value that you convert later to breaking ice for free. So this actually is an econ card that for 8 credits kind of makes sense. Like it will give you 8 credits worth of breaking throughout the whole game. So a lot of Shaper decks start with 3x Endurance. I think a lot of Anarch decks probably should be playing 2x Endurance. I've seen some Anarch decks recently playing Pantograph, and I don't mind it, but I feel like 2 extra influence for Endurance is a steal. Even some Criminal decks, I think, should be playing a singleton Endurance. Just as a panic button, and if they draw it, they play it, and they replace whatever console they have if they are playing other consoles. I think Endurance is so good. This is the only thing that kind of, it's a whole startup. I feel like this is the one big pain point on the runner side is that you need a very good reason not to play Endurance besides you want to see something else, because I think this is just by far the best console. It's kind of over everything else. Do you have plans to hold a tourney on Saturday in the future? Yeah, totally. We're going to try different time zones, let alone dates. This first event was the most picked date by patrons on the channel who got the first like choice of what made sense for them. But yeah, we'll be trying other stuff. Trank out of Az isn't uncommon. I haven't seen it, but Az inherently is uncommon. So we're like 2 uncommons down in, which makes it super uncommon. We're talking about IDs here. I think you get some interesting options. Padma is like kind of the most consistent thing because Padma inherently supports some of the best cards we talked about, like Wake Implant, but also Endurance. So you're going to see a heck of a lot of Padma, I reckon, if you're ever playing the hyper competitive startup. Otherwise, you have Dao, who's fine. 40 card minimum is okay. Kid is interesting and good and quirky, but 10 influence is hard. And Isla is like, some people like Isla. I don't like Isla that much. Hey, Optical, how's it going? I see Trank and Reyna, but I think it's more cute than good. I think that's going to be common with Tranquilizer. I also feel like in the format, there's like, why D-Res on Ice when you can break it for free with Endurance? You know, yeah. Kid is interesting and good. Kid, I think, is actually underrated. I do think like Kit's relevance is probably less necessary in a world where you can play Endurance, but also you can play Kit and Endurance. And I think that's kind of fine. I think 10 influence is like not the biggest issue in startup. But yeah, I think Kit has more upsides in this format than in standard. Kit performed well in the NH startup tournament last weekend. I believe it. But I also do believe that a lot of the identities can be swapped without making big like that's inherently the thing with startup is that startup's card pool is pretty small, obviously compared to standard, that if you look at any Kit deck and you look at any Padma deck, they're going to be 70% the same deck. And there's nothing wrong with that. I still think you need to play good Netrunner, and the Netrunner can be exciting and good, and on average usually is, which is great about startup. But I do think, right, like it's very easy to take a Kit deck and a Padma deck and make them the other deck with minor changes. So I think whatever you want works out pretty well. Okay, that's hardware. There's other stuff that sees play. DZ is fine, but none of this like really defines how you have to play. Against Padma, ice up R&D really well. That's it. Like there's a lot of value from this. Padma is also probably going to play Wake Implant, so you need to ice up HQ somewhat, but definitely don't make R&D easy to run. And even if you have the outermost ice on R&D, if it's just an end the run, Padma can consider running it just to end the run to get a power counter. So you want something good on the outside of R&D. That's generally where you're going to lose, so watch out for that. DAO is a bit more nuanced. Just don't install the cheap ice. Don't ice up any server you don't need to ice up, because eventually the worst server that you didn't need to ice up is going to have your best ice. And Kit is also interesting too. Against Kit, you want to make sure that you have your code gates on the outside so that they inherently eat the code gate ability from Kit, so that things aren't that bad further from that. Some people play Isla. Wow, the tone. Well, it's fine. Isla's fine. It's just like, it's not, I don't know. I will say this for Isla's ability, the deck thinning aspect is pretty great. I'm always pleased with my draws. It's pretty great, but you can also just play like a smaller deck if you really wanted to. Now, this gives you the ability to small your deck for the matchup that makes sense, but I'd also argue that startup, unlike standard, there's less tech cards that are like, this is dead in this certain matchup, just because I feel like the field is less, things don't go as far in different directions, as quickly in different directions. So much enthusiasm for the Shaper IDs until Isla, and people like Isla. I don't get it. Yeah, whatever. You may not ever use the NVRAM stuff, but knowing it's there means you spend less clicks randomly drawing. Yes. Yes. And for what it's worth, there's no more self-modifying code in Shaper. So like having consistency is actually a bit more interesting than before rotation. So I am going to undersell Isla, but I don't think Isla decks on average are going to be more powerful than just the ability of Padma and playing a bit more card draw. For what it's worth, Shaper has the most card draw, more card draw than makes sense in startup. So I don't even know if finding the thing that you need to find means that much in a format where dropping an endurance on turn 1 solves like 80% of your problems. So yeah, I don't know. Padma's base, Tao is aggressive, Isla's kid is aggressive. I think you should play more Dao, especially now that SMC is not in startup. Yeah, I think Dao is fine too. It's just like hard to not play Padma. But yeah, Dao is probably fine. Based interesting is aggressive. All right, in terms of other Shaper stuff you have to play around, you're expecting a lot of card draw. I don't think anything else here is really worth playing around besides Deep Dive. And unfortunately, in startup, there's not that many ways to play around Deep Dive. It's worth noting that you might expect some amount of Deep Dive in Sable, but that's just something that's going to happen. So the best thing you can do is don't play a game that's going to go to turn 20, because by that time, a Deep Dive is going to happen. But in this format, barring putting your defensive upgrade on a central server, a Crisium grid, which if you have that, that's where it ends up anyways, deep dives will just happen to you. You can't really play around it besides going fast enough and make it hard to do. If you're putting your Noetic Void on R&D, how are you scoring out on a remote server? I don't know. So yeah, just watch out. This is a card that's worth knowing that exists, but like it just makes you play faster. I don't think you actually have to do anything smart around it. And as much as like Shapers are meant to pressure R&D, I don't think Maker's Eye is anywhere near as popular as it used to be, but technically they do, but you're more going to see that in Padma. Get you Crisium? Yeah, maybe. Shaper Breaker Suite. You actually see frighteningly little of it. A lot of times Shaper decks are playing Endurance and they're splashing the Breaker Suite from Anarch, which we'll talk about in a bit, which is actually a really important thing. So actually a lot of these cards you see not at all in the format. Perisha is interesting. I do think if you have one influence and you're worried about your deck being not good into asset-based decks, I think you can either consider Perisha or you can consider Scrubber. There's downsides and upsides to either of them, but these are the sort of cards, just like No Free Lunch, that are always worth knowing when you're deck building because they allow you to fix or really ameliorate certain issues by spending minimal influence on very easy to play cards. Perisha falls very heavily into that camp. Otherwise, Conduit is a way to close games. You don't see a lot of it. I think it's better than it looks, but people aren't playing it. But watch out. If a Shaper ever gets a Conduit down, you need to fix R&D or you're going to lose the game. It's that simple. And then the other card that we want to shout out is Turbine. Turbine is wild. I honestly am scared of Turbine. I feel like a lot of the good Shaper decks are basically engines to set up Turbine and all their breakers, and then they break every single card in the format for about 1 to 2 credits. I don't have a good answer to you of how to deal with that besides going pretty quickly and then having alternate angles to attack. If you're ever build a Netrunner deck, and this is not just startup, this is standard as well, barring like welcome to the game, this is my first dozen games of Netrunner, and your deck is, I have agendas, I have economy, and I have ice, and that's it. That's inherently going to be a very flawed Netrunner deck against opponents who have built their deck in a way that wants to punish you on that. Your deck cannot win by just having ice that's good and then agendas you put behind that ice. So things like Turbine are the absolute punishment where they break all your ice for pennies. So again, play traps or have alternate win conditions like tags or punishments, stuff like that. Play upgrades. There's just so many things you need to do, and Turbine is going to be the max punisher for that. I think you're going to definitely see Turbine on Sunday, and it's kind of up to you to make sure your Corp deck can win the game before turn 20, I think. Just go fast. Fast advance is very viable. I think fast advance is like very good. Hard, but good. I like it. Buzzsaw Turbine may not need to install Endurance much. No, but you install Endurance so that you can go into the depths for your Buzzsaw Turbine. My final viewing from Thailand. Good morning, everyone. David, how's it going? Anemone is your friend against Deep Dive? It is, but like, I don't know. It's still, yeah, technically. That's a niche option, though, for a lot of people. I feel like that matchup Deep Dive's hard to do anyways. I got hit with the good old Maker's Eye plus full Waken Planet startup tournament last week. Oh, that's sick. Were they playing Zaya? Because that'd be so exciting. Excited to see that, Rohit. How's it going? Given the generic choice to trash one Breaker or a Turbine? Sorry, Neon, what do you mean? Dao is slow, but that's Shaper. I think it fits the archetype perfectly, but the late game Dao can utterly wreck either centrals or remotes if the Corp scores out first whelp. I think there's some like interesting Punisher Dao lists that say like, oh, you scored out and you don't have a lot of credits, so I'm going to move unres dice to R&D and conduit in. And I think that actually works. I do think there's like a high skill ceiling of Dao decks that involve like planning into the future. And for what it's worth, trying to keep this as approachable as possible, I'm not going to consider that deck because I don't think you really need to. And honestly, I don't even know if that functions better than just playing all the good stuff and playing like the nuclear submarine list we did a video on a couple weeks ago. Shout out to Kokoro and all the other events that are being played with a similar deck like that and doing quite well. Turbine doesn't need to be unique because of the resources it consumes. If the game is forever long, it should be unique, but in short games you can slap 2 of these down. Yeah, I've never seen 2 of these down, and for what it's worth in startup, there's like no ice that sees consistent play that's over 5 strength. There's only 1 ice, I think, in the format. 2 ice in the format that can be over 5 strength, so double turbine doesn't even make sense. So yeah, you don't have to do it. Just Padma. Should have seen it coming. I struggle with a decision when it presents it. Do I trash turbine to make it more expensive, or the breakers, which is the thing that breaks it in the first place? Oh, okay. So the idea is that you're a corp and you can trash one program. The runner has their breaker suite and they have a turbine. What do you trash? So it's interesting. Depends how long the game's going to be. It depends on who you're playing and what they're playing. Firstly, check out what is the majority of your ice that actually is going to be a problem for them to run into. If your remote server is like 2 code gates in a row, and then you check their archives or their heap and they've already thrown out, they've discarded their 1 hyperbaric or their 1 buzzsaw, you'd probably be better trashing their 1 decoder. That being said, if it's in the early game and you know they have another decoder, it's probably better in the long run to trash a turbine, because then your ice, as long as it's above that 3 strength threshold where like buzzsaw turbine starts to matter, then you can maybe go for the turbine. But I think the biggest thing is that if they don't have, if they've already thrown out, again, they're not running 3 of every breaker, you can probably trash the breaker. Now, if endurance is on the table, probably don't do that, and then just deal with, if endurance is there, which it probably is, I would probably trash the turbine, because then the endurance will be filling the holes that trashing the breaker will you know, present. And with turbine gun down, everything gets worse. And then the endurance is spread a bit thinner. Yeah. Brawn 6 is by Byroid. Yeah, I think it's just Brawn, if I'm not mistaken, in the format, Archer and Pharos, but I think that's it. Yeah. I think that's it. And then like you endurance that stuff, like who cares? Otherwise, Shaper, World Tree is interesting, but for the scope of this conversation, it's not worth playing around any different than Criminal. Just ice up everything. It's hard to get World Tree value when everything's iced up. Nuka is really, really quite good. And Stone Ship Chart Room is another 1 influence card that is worth splashing. This card allows you to draw at instant speed, and that's really important. If you're playing into any deck that wants to kill you out of nowhere through tags, through Jinteki damage, this is a card that if you're not feeling confident about the matchup, you can put into your deck. Yeah, it can charge things, that's cool. But even if your deck has no charge targets, this is a very okay way to spend a single influence. Worst case, you spend a click to draw 2. But it's whenever you want to draw, which means that, oh, I'm on 1 hand size. Oh, I think I'm going to die. You can pop the Stone Ship Chart Room. So this falls into the list of cards that you can and should consider importing if you have a bit of influence left over. I do think, though, No Free Lunch should be played before Stone Ship Chart Room. And even before Parisha, probably. So keep that in mind. But that's another on the list of things to care about. Anarch. I usually trash the breaker, then they have to spend time searching for it, and I have a scoring window, but if I don't have any agenda to push out during the window, I might choose turbine. I think against Shaper, though, they're like running into the depths, so like it's just a matter before they get the next breaker down. I've never seen anyone charge a Stone Ship. You see it on top tables and standards sometimes, or you used to, where it actually mattered, where like endurance was like, oh, I need to get a charge to get in. But it's, yeah, it's less common. Anarch is really weird because I think Anarch has a whole bunch of holes in their kind of their card pool. I think the console slot is really bad. Like generally we go down to the hardware section and talk about Anarch, but Anarch is really strange right now because Anarch has 2 packages. They have the sabotage package and then they have another package, I guess, sort of. And currently, in terms of seeing additional cards, like having multi-access, the sort of thing that's important that every sort of deck that you're playing as runner has ways to see more than a single card for every run off central servers, Anarch has almost none of it. They have Finality, which, yeah, we'll talk about events. Finality is really worth it. And then that's kind of it. They have the twinning, but like no real good way in faction to make it reasonable. And so you go out of faction and it's not the worst, but like you kind of have to sabotage. So if we're looking at the console slots, you have Marrow, which sees no play unless you're playing Essa and sabotaging heavily, and in that case, it's kind of necessary. And then you have Carnivore, which you can choose to play if you want. I wouldn't. I would probably play Endurance over this if you're playing competitive. If you want to play Lou and trigger Lou a bit more consistently, you can play Carnivore, and it's probably not the worst thing. It's just really hard not to spend 10 influence if you're trying to, you know, do the best thing possible. But yeah, It's worth noting that a lot of these cards, like Time Bomb or Ghost Tongue, you actually could play outside of ESA, outside of Sabotage, outside of core damage decks, and they're actually not the worst. But a lot of times, again, Sabotage scales the amount of more Sabotage you have in the list. Sabotaging 1 every 3 turns does nothing, but sabotaging 2 every single turn is actually a really, really big cost. So keep that in mind. Anarch identities are also, I think, the worst. Quetzal as an identity is not very good. A lot of the problems that Quetzal can solve don't actually exist in startup. There's not a lot of ice that has single subroutine or is high strength that has one end the run that you can't deal with, because a lot of the barriers are low strength, and just in the format Cleaver, let alone Botulus, deals with them so well. So I would not say a lot of Quetzal is worth pursuing, as cute as Poison Vial is. Reina falls in that camp as well. It's actually one of the oldest cards in all of System Update, being the no, actually, is she the second Anarch ID or the third Anarch ID? Did Wizard come out after Reina? I think Wizard came out before Reina. Reina has never been competitively good, and Reina's ability is like, it's not worth looking at. Essa and Lou are good though, and I think Lou is the consistent like good stuff deck, and Essa is you're playing an Essa deck. You kind of know what you signed up for, and it's a lot of fun. It really is quite good. Yeah, I think it's Noise then Wizard, and Reina just never did anything. Reina's ability doesn't matter. Okay. So when you're playing against Anarch, there's certain things you're expecting. Again, if you're playing against Sabotage, that on its own, it's its own conversation of how to play against Sabotage. Keep extra cards in hand. Icing up archives doesn't actually make sense because they're not running archives every turn. They're running archives maybe twice a game to check on their harvest. So icing up archives is not a winning proposition unless you need to ice up archives for a turn to find your Spin Doctor. Headlock Reina was a renowned deck, yeah, but it didn't perform. It was a beloved archetype that didn't consistently do anything. In fact, like I think a lot of the Headlock decks are probably better as Noise anyways. But yeah, I like it. I like Headlock Reina. I just don't think it. Yeah, okay. I forgot about Headlock Reina. It's fine. Otherwise, the Anarch, Chestushka. That's actually really powerful. You don't often see this in the Lou decks. You're going to generally see this one in the Essa decks. Just make sure that Essa inherently Sabotage is HQ pressure. Against Essa, you do want to ice up HQ. You do want to ice up R&D. R&D, the big reason is Finality. Finality is really strong, and every Anarch should be playing this. Taking a single core damage largely doesn't matter. They're going to see 4 cards in R&D. That's often how they can win the game. Again, unfortunately, any burst multi-axis like this, you can't stop it from happening. You just don't want to make it easy to happen. So getting Finality on turn 1, turn 2, not probably great for you. So just put an ice there, and then eventually they have to get the breaker down. And ideally you're doing other stuff, you know, on the right of HQ where you build your remote servers. So they have to worry about that and not just like, I'm going to finality again. And that works. Katurga Breakout is an Anarch card that is the best universal recursion in the format. It's not really worth playing different around, but remember that even if you trash all of Anarch's breakers, they have a chance of bringing them back. And Raindrops Cut Stone, don't res ice on central server runs where they just value raindrops. Don't do like I do. Steelskin Scarring is really quite good and worth understanding that you can't just kill a runner out of nowhere as long as you don't kill them in one hit, because they will probably hold these in hand. Hey, Sophie, this topic's quite the endeavor for a stream. Very cool. Hopefully everyone has fun this weekend. Hey, I appreciate Sophie. Again, let me know if this is worth it. If you have questions, ask. I'm going to keep talking for a while. And like, if this doesn't make sense for anybody, let me know. And we can go to like actual gameplay stuff. But I'm hoping this helps for someone. I don't know. Otherwise, Breaker Suite is really weird when it comes to Anarch because they have some huge holes in their Breaker Suite, which I can't figure out how to solve. And I don't think a lot of people have figured out to solve. But don't worry, you don't have to. You can just play Endurance. We talked about how the console slot in Anarch is like really rough if you're not playing core damage and playing Marrow. So that's why playing 2 Endurance makes so much sense for this faction, which inherently has a lot of money, inherently has some pressure cards, but inherently does not have good ways to deal with a lot of the ice pool in the format. So a lot of the ice or ice breakers in this format are kind of higher strengths, sort of. Well, we'll talk about it in a second. First, I just want to mention Imp. You're seeing 3 of these in Lou decks. Ice Centrals and Lou. Don't allow Lou to get free Imp triggers. It's a lot of damage, so watch out for that. Angus shows up sometimes. Mimic, we'll talk about this, because Mimic is the first of many breakers that only really work on low strength ice. A lot of times people call these fixed strength breakers, and we'll look at Buzzsaw and Cleaver, which are this, but they actually can increase their strength. But often you don't see them without support. So this is Cleaver, and this is Buzzsaw. And this is the big reason why people are playing Turbine, because having a Buzzsaw be a 5 strength decoder that breaks 2 subroutines for 1 credit means it breaks every single code gate in the format for 1 credit. I think 2 credits is the worst case scenario. On encounters is an even worse case scenario, but generally you're getting through just about every mid-range code gate for 1 credit. Obviously you have to get all that stuff down, and Buzzsaw for 4 is somewhat expensive, but like this is the big reason why I don't like playing low strength code gates a lot of times in, or a lot of them, mind you, in startup. just because once you get them down, they just get buzzsawed for 1. And that's pretty bad. I think there's reasons to play low strength code gates because the magnet's really good in the format, but like, yeah, it's kind of rough. And cleaver's the same thing. It's like hard to get barriers that are taxing in the format that aren't high strength barriers. And so I do actually value things like Pharos and Oncel and anything that's actually high strength. It's kind of hard for people to deal with. But again, endurance. You only have so much high strength stuff, so that's where they use the endurance. I haven't played Startup in so long that I honestly have no idea what it's about. Let's build an ESA deck so I can steal it for Sunday. Yeah, we'll find one. I don't know if we'll build one. We'll find one online because there's a lot of good ones. There's some really good stuff. Banhar is a thing. Yeah, Banhar is really good. Banhar is really quite good. It's nice with the breakdown. Some suggestions on common influence cards like Spin Doctor would be cool. Yeah, we'll get to the Corp side. Yeah, otherwise, Fermenter is really good for 2 influence. If you want a very good economy option, that works. We also have options like Liberated Accounts and Telework Contract, which we didn't talk about in the Shaper side. But I think Fermenter is one of the most powerful econ cards in the whole format. It's kind of install, and then you just fire it when you need it. You're going to see this across most factions. It's not Shaper, maybe, but it's really quite good. Botchless, not much has to be said too. It gives you that pseudo endurance so you can deal with some of the high strength ice. Again, if we can't cleaver through a Pharos, just run through it every 2 turns or whatever with Botchless. And the last thing I want to highlight is Hush, which I think Hush low-key is very, very good in the format. It is good against every faction, barring Jinteki. Wayland's HP is a bit okay, but this card solves so many issues, specifically if you're playing against NBN, and I think NBN is actually quite good, is that this deals with so much of the on-encounter stuff. And most of the ice that it ends up being taxing to startup runners is stuff that has on-encounter. Because eventually we can break all the subroutines we want with buzzsaws and cleavers and spend credits while actually having on-encounters that give tags or make you cost money is really, really good. So I think Hush is quite powerful. I wish there were more cards that rewarded 4 or less core damage. Like for the Corp, like more core damage Punisher cards. I made a top cup for the first time in NH last weekend. I bought Variations of Nuclear Submarine and the Restoring Humanity deck for Dublin. What's NH? Firstly, Sophie, congratulations. I'm an Anarch, how dare you? You can get Cheeky Hush on Anemone against Jinteki. Yeah, against Jinteki, a lot of times you have to get it on stuff before it's res, which like is not a great use of Hush. As much as maybe you want to get it out of your hand onto the table before you lose it to net damage, but whatever. Oh, New Hampshire, thank you. Okay, other Anarch stuff. Nobody plays Light the Fire, but maybe they should. Liberated Counts is one of the best econ cards in the format, albeit it's a bit slow, but 2 influence gives you 10 credits on a single card. That's a lot. And just about any of the criminal decks that are so greedy and run-based, get some Liberated Counts in there because you want a card that can give you money if interaction is something you struggle to do in the early to mid game, or it gives you something to do in the mid to late game while you're like setting up. So fantastic. Hush Archer. Scrubber falls into the camp of 1 influence cards you can consider just because it gives you 2 credits. If you install it and use it the turn that you get it down, it is technically still negative on tempo, but everything from there, it becomes really good. If you get 8 credits off a single Scrubber, it's a very good economy card, and there are going to be matchups that are about 20 assets and upgrades, so getting this down is actually quite good. It's also not unique, but it's harder to get value from your second Scrubber. Banhar, you have to build a deck around. I don't think you're going to see Banhar showing up in criminal or Shaper lists. I'd be very surprised, but I do think Banhar is one of the most unfair and interesting things Anarchs can do in the format before or after an endurance gets down. Don't sleep on this thing. And Twinning is a really good card, but unfortunately Anarch has no good ways to use them besides Scrubber, which is inconsistent. So if you want to play Twinning, play it in criminal with Cheswa or play it in Anarch with prepaid voice pad. Neutral cards, they're not really worth looking at because all the neutral cards are good, or you know what they are. Hush Brand? Wait, why? Career Fair with Liberated? If you're playing Criminal, yeah. See if you're playing at least 6 or 7 3-cost cards, and then you can play Career Fair in it. For sure. Yeah, the neutral stuff is generically pretty good. There's not a lot of it, right? Like Jailbreak is sick. All the stuff is really sick besides Memory Diamond. You know what you did. Smartware Distributor is on the verge of being playable, but the problem is if people are really scared of endurance and like, what's it called? The late game inevitability of Turbine, I feel like these economy over time cards feel less and less viable. So I don't know. If the game's fast, it's hard. Finish running games for today's stream? No, we're going to do more. I'm worried that we're just going to talk for so long. So I feel like we're going to do Corp really quickly, hopefully. And then from there, we're going to just look at starved decks and we'll probably play some. It's already 10:30. Damn. What makes sense? Do y'all want to see deck lists or you want to see the Corp side of this like rant? Hey, Jesse, this is excellent. Getting back into this game after a few years, and this is exactly what I'm looking for. Oh, well, that's encouraging. I'm glad that actually is helping out, Jesse. Welcome back to the game. It's really great. The best thing for Smartware Distributor is the playmat. Yeah, the playmat's really good. Do Corp, I won't interrupt. Verbal doesn't even get the mention. I think Verbal's like fine. I think Verbal's interesting. I just think like Shaper has too much card draw. I think Criminal probably wants to play this. I think also splashing Nuka makes sense in some lists, or like Steel Skin or Diesel, but Verbal's fine. I've actually been really surprised against most of my opponents that actually play Verbal. They end up like drawing through their entire deck, which like way faster than they think they will. So it's quite good. Okay, we'll do Corp. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Let's start with HB. Does HB work? I feel like we have to write Haspiroid like this. Yeah, welcome back to the game. Quick corpse. Okay, cool. HB. We'll start with identities here. It's easier on the corp side because there's only 3 identities for each faction. And in most cases, there's only functionally like 1 or 2 identities, for better or for worse. So HB, you got 3 options. You got Architects of Tomorrow. If you don't want to have friends, it's probably okay in startup. I honestly don't know if there's enough Biroids to support an ID that really cares about Biroids. 12 influence isn't great, but this is a sort of ID that like you kind of sit back and don't do anything and then like try and win on turn 20, which like against a meta, if you're expecting endurance, let alone you're expecting turbine, don't do that because all the Biroids get broken for like 2 credits. And by the time you're excited to score out, so be it. And if you're going to prove me wrong and play an Architects of Tomorrow deck and like win on Sunday, you probably could have been playing a better PD deck, so you're proving nothing. I can't be wrong. PD is good. PD is just like universally very good. It's been good ever since it came out. I think you can do anything you want with PD. Extra hand size, recursion, 40 card minimum. Everything it does is good. It doesn't force you in a certain direction as much as you're going to see that sort of like mid-range rush PD deck consistently. I don't know if you're going to see it on Sunday because not a lot of people have been playing it in startup, but like it's fine. Thule is its own thing. We did a Thule deck dive recently, and I do think that deck also might be better as PD. I think Thule decks are slower. I think if you're worried about core damage, you can take 1 core damage. Don't take 2 core damage unless at least 2 ontological dependencies are already in score areas. If you see on the table a Jupstead grid, you probably want to trash it because that's the only unfair thing they can do. Buffer Drive can be a good tech in a 40 deck in a heavy PE meta. Buffer Drive rotated, unfortunately. And even then, I wouldn't recommend it. I would just recommend playing better multi-axis or playing better. I don't think Buffer Drive is a solution to a problem that exists that can be solved by playing something better. But Buffer Drive, unfortunately, is out of startup, so we don't have to worry about it. So excited for how awesome the game looks after a couple of months of trying to get into Flesh and Blood. The cost is a huge motivator. But you haven't seen the expensive legendaries. If you want to get Trieste model Biroids in HB deck, you want 3 of them. And currently on the market, they're going for like $85. So like most of the HB Biroid, I'm kidding. I play Flesh and Blood sometimes. It's bad. All right. HB. The agendas don't really do that much. Like they're good, but like you don't have to know what any of the text does. I'm talking about playing against them or as them. Like you don't have to worry about the text. There's fine. In terms of the assets, nothing really to worry about. I would recommend in startup, I think economy is a bit tight, especially if someone's playing Architects of Tomorrow or Thule. Like they don't inherently have money. In fact, PD inherently isn't an economic ability. So if someone gets a Nico campaign on the table behind an ice, you probably do want to contest it. Again, try and contest safely, whatever that means. Generally, if you're expecting Biroids, run sooner than later. But if you can trash their economic cards, that's really important. Because if someone gets a whole Nico off, that's 7 card credits and an extra card. Like that's a lot. So at least make them spend money to protect the Nico, because that means that they're not as safe in the early game. And if they're doing that, they can't protect centrals. But do contest economic assets. I think the most common economic asset you're going to see in the format is Regolith. Oh my God, we didn't talk about pinhole threading somehow. Hey, Cody, how's it going? This is the ultimate 1 influence card to play in every deck. I think if you're playing startup and you're not playing at a minimum 2 pinhole threading, you're probably either playing ESA or doing it wrong. And I'll say it like that, doing it wrong. So much of startup has powerful assets and upgrades that really matter, let alone using this to check what's in the remote server, as pseudo exposes the most important thing. This is the best card in the whole format. This and Endurance. Sure Gamble was like 5 cards fewer down than that. But like pinhole threading is the ultimate deck. I do not think I would play a startup deck that isn't probably playing 2 pinhole threading or 2 no free lunch. And 2 no free lunch, unless I have a really good reason not to. So this is the ultimate card. Cool. And that'll come up in a lot of reasons where we can talk about good upgrades and assets. HB Ice is kind of all over the place. A magnet is something worth knowing if you're playing Botulists because they can eat them. It's hard to play around it, but like you probably don't want to put Botulists on unresed ice a lot of the time because you're expecting at least 2 magnets in a lot of the HB lists, sometimes 3. Biroids as a whole run early in the turn. If you run late in the turn, that's generally not a good thing to be doing in Netrunner as a whole, and Biroids are one of the big punishers. So if you're playing against HB, try and think myself, I'm going to run click 1 as opposed to I'm going to run click 3, which like can be an absolute disaster. Against harmonics, bloop is a thing. Watch out. You have to be able to deal with this as soon as another harmonics is res. You don't want to take core damage. You don't want to get your programs trashed, and nothing else really matters. Everything else is like fine. You don't have to know what it is. Pinhole with Chesva is fool's gold. Pinhole with Chesva is really good. Yeah, it is quite good. Otherwise, HB, Seamless Launch is one of the best cards in the format. It lets you put 2 advancements for a single click as long as that card wasn't installed this turn, which means any card in a remote server threatens to be a 4-2 agenda. All right, you install behind ice, the runner doesn't run it because they think it's a Nico, it's a regolith. I don't know if it's an agenda, it's not advanced. And then you do like Seamless Launch, advance, advance, advance. I did one too many advances. You do Seamless Launch, advance, advance. It's a 4-2, obviously very good. And that's a big strength of HB, is that they can be very jammy and score out the 4-2 agendas, which are universally generally much better than a lot of the 3-2 agendas, not having to take a lot of risk on and showing that there's agenda in the remote server. Another good reason why pinhole threading is okay, and another good reason why checking the remote server early and often can be okay, and why cards like Endurance help you get there. So watch out for that. This is a very important card. If you see a Seamless Launch in any deck that's not HB, you have to know that they're going to be playing 4-2 agendas. Now, that's not going to be a surprise because I feel like every faction basically has to play 4-2 agendas because there's not a lot of agendas in startup as a whole, but do keep that in mind. Biotic Labor is also a card. If an HB deck is on 5 agenda points and you suspect they have a Biotic Labor, you just have to go ham. You just have to get enough accesses. You're going to lose next turn, maybe. If they have at least 7 credits, you're going to lose next turn. So, like, just kind of go. Like, the game doesn't matter. It's going to be over quickly. Just get as many accesses as you can. And then upgrades. Managarm is really good. Is one of the good defensive upgrades while you play pinhole threading. Mr. Hendrick is a card for core damage to try and have clicks left. You're going to try and do that anyways with Thule. I think if you misplay into a Hendrick, it's not going to cost you the game, so don't fret about it. But, like, just remember there's cards that can give you core damage if you can't spend clicks left. And trash jupe stats. Just trash jupe stats. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Just don't take core damage, and then Thule can't do anything. That's fine. All right. Any questions? Jinteki is going to be easy because there's like one Jinteki ID. There's 2 Jinteki IDs. I don't know if I said hey, Cody. How you doing, Cody? Okay, Jinteki IDs. Oh, Hyobu rotated. Okay, there's actually Jinteki IDs. Jinteki is tricky. Jinteki can do a lot of different things in startup. It's kind of tricky because I do think this is one of the IDs that you really need to have a game plan, and actually understanding the card pool is a huge advantage to you. Because a lot of times Jinteki, you need to evaluate the board state. You need to look at a board state and think like, oh, if I don't run this, what's the worst that can happen to me? Or if I do run this, what's the worst that can happen to me? And you're going to have a bit of practice with Jinteki. Inherently, there's 2 kind of camps for Jinteki decks. There are Jinteki decks like Personal Evolution that probably want to hurt you. One of the best things you can do is don't run late in the turn, because if you run late in the turn and it hits something that does a lot of damage to you, you just don't have time to draw up. And ending your turn with low cards on hand is inherently very dangerous. So try and run early if you can. Inherently, also, a lot of these trap decks have assets, and mostly assets that they can do something cool if they get them in a remote server. So if you want to be safe, running central servers can be safer because you find things like the Urtica cipher before it hits the table. So keep that in mind if you can, but otherwise you're probably gonna have to run the table at some time. Have fun. It's Netrunner. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And then Restoring Humanity is the interesting one, because Restoring Humanity is an economic ability, and they're going to want to ice up Archives, and I promise you Archives is going to matter. I think that if you just consistently run Archives as often as you can against Restoring Humanity deck, you'll win like half the time. I just feel like the one unfair cool thing Restoring Humanity can do involves getting agendas face down and unrun in Archives. Like the runner has to not get them flipped up. So if you can just run Archives every turn, it's going to be expensive, but like it actually makes them a very ugly deck if they have to score out. I don't know what Isawak does. I barely know the text on Isawak, and I think that's probably fine. 90 Grid isn't banned? No, there's no bans in startup. You can do whatever you want. It's sick. It's really good. All right, agendas. A bunch of these agendas hurt you. Like Blend the Water, care about hand size. House and Eyes, care about hand size. Just try and keep your hand size up, generically. Just kind of keep your hand size up. I think Regenesis is the one that's worth playing around. Again, this has a lot of text on it, but in short, if you didn't run Archives and they scored Regenesis, they just got 4 points. You can't let that happen, because if you let that happen, the Restoring Humanity deck is much closer to winning the game. And the longer that game goes on, I feel like that can't be good for Restoring Humanity deck. So just make sure that doesn't happen as much as possible. And then Nisei Mark II is like a very powerful card, but like nobody plays it, so you'd be fine. Okay. I don't know. My Jinteki takes are kind of a mess because like the decks are like very varied. I think just inherently like having cards in hand means you can deal with Reaper function. Having cards in hand means you can deal with Snare or Bladderwort or Ronin, like Urtica Cypher. Just try and value card draw. Don't end your turn with low cards in hand against Jinteki trap decks, and then check whatever you're brave enough to check. If you have any sort of multi-axis that's disruptive, so be it. You don't want to access like 4 cards in a run. Like Finality might be a bit dangerous. Don't take on core damage. If they're trying to hurt you, just make sure it's hard for them to kill you. Like take some risks, don't take no risks, but make sure you're taking the risks when they make sense. Yeah, trash keeling, and this is like the big reason why we're playing 2x pinhole, if not 3x pinhole in decks. Like there's cards like this. Like if you can't trash keeling, you lose. I think we played on like one of the first days that Borealis came out, and we were playing a startup deck, and we just could not find a breaker, and we just died to keeling. It took us 6 turns to die to keeling, and we did. We just did draw, no breaker, draw, no breaker, and like pinhole threading. What are you doing? Yeah, trash keeling. The Jinteki ice is all over the place. There's some ice that's expensive that actually is relatively taxing, and then there's a bunch of like cheap ice that sees almost no play. Definer sees some play. I don't know. This stuff is generally going to hurt you. So if you have any card in hand that you need to get installed before you face check into Jinteki Ice, try and do that sooner than later. Jinteki Ice is generally the code gates and the sentries that are going to hurt you. I don't think you need a Fractor to face check into Jinteki Ice if you're feeling unconfident. Just try and get down your cards that if you lose them, you will lose the game, the irreplaceable ones. Try to get them down before you face check. But a lot of this ice is like, you don't have to know what it is and your game will be fine. Anemone, you need to know what it is. Jinteki can just do 2 net damage out of nowhere, so just remember that. That changes maths sometimes if you're trying to access with 3 cards for Snare, but yeah, keep that in mind. None of this really matters. Anoetic Void is really good. If you can't deal with it, that's one of the best defensive upgrades, and Nana Civic is okay. It's obviously powerful, but like you don't have to worry yourself about this. If it's on archives, it's going to be a problem. It is banned in standard, so generally those cards are pretty good. Yeah, just run archives, flip the archives. You'll be fine. Okay, we got this. NBN we're going to do this in less than 3 minutes. Oh no. Okay. NBN, I think, is probably one of the best factions in startup just because it attacks runners in a different angle than breakers. Admittedly, Jinteki does attack by damaging. I do think card draw is actually not that bad in startup. It's a lot better than it used to be. But like NBN has really good ice and really good ways to attack people. Reality Plus makes tags really favorable for them, and a lot of the good ice tags people. Proptivos is like fun if you want to bluff a bit and play traps, and Nearth Hub allows you to get card draw whenever you build remote servers, which means you can build more and more remote servers, which ideally eventually that becomes a win condition to some extent, but you have 17 influence, so how bad can that be? And I think all of these are actually really good archetypes. Proptivos is the biggest question mark that people don't know how to play into or against, and like power to that. But Nearth Hub is very competitive and Reality Plus is very competitive. You're going to see these if the event is competitive, so having an idea of what they can do is super important. Let's start with the Agenda Suite. Agenda Suites are really good. Yeah, Crypto Crash is just going to be the boogie monster you have to worry about. Sometimes you can lose 7 credits if you don't run the remote server. Hard to deal with that. Headline as a one of is not worth playing around, but yeah, sometimes you get a tag, and that's kind of all that really matters. Freedom Information gives you tags. It's fast events out when you have tags. I feel like these are really bad takes, but like I don't think you need to know what any of the text on these agendas are and have a really, it doesn't change your game that much, barring Crypto Crash. But like it's hard to play around Crypto Crash. You're getting to like really next level strats when you're trying to like spend all your money before Crypto Crash hits. So always just having a resource that has money on it is the best thing you can do. So like that's why we play Fermenter. That's why we play Liberated Accounts or like Teleware Contract or whatever. Just so we can have money offshore. So if we ever get our account attacked, we have something to fall back on. But yeah, none of this is that important. Spin Doctor is the best card on the Corp side in the whole format. Just about every deck you're going to be running into plays 3 of these. It's just such a nuanced card. You can use an instant speed to draw or recycle cards into your deck, and 2 is a very fair trash cost for this, as much as res free is pretty wild as well. You're going to see this everywhere. Don't play a deck without 3 of them unless you can really have a really good idea. And then if you think you have a really good reason why you're not going to play Spin Doctor, go talk to at least 3 other Netrunner players. And if you can convince at least one of them, maybe you can do it. But if you can't convince any of them, you probably don't have a good idea. You want to play 3 Spin Doctors. Nothing really matters here. Daily Business Show is very good. I think this is something that you probably want to trash, and a lot of people are going to undervalue it in the NBN matchup. Having the ability to control what you draw basically gives you the ability to control the entire game. You don't flood up, you draw into your assets instead of your agendas, which means you can spam on more assets. This card is low-key super important, even though it doesn't say the word agenda or credit or anything like that on it. If you can trash Daily Business Shows, you definitely need to trash Daily Business Shows. Same thing with Gaslight, just trash them. Just trash them. If you find them, trash them. Don't consider anything. Drago is really powerful, but we are going to be playing, as we talked about, our no free lunches, so we can deal with the Drago tags. So you will see Drago in every Reality Plus deck, I reckon. This thing will just give you a tag, and then they'll have some sort of tag punishment, which we're going to start seeing tag punishment today, right now. But that's why we play no free lunch, because it's hard to deal with Drago. Check us as a trap. It'll happen. NBN Ice is very, very good. Every NBN Ice, besides one, you know who you are, is very, very good. And it's one of the big reasons why I think playing NBN makes a lot of sense. Funhouse is one of the genuinely taxing code gates in the entire format. No matter what, if they're going through this, it's still hard to break with Buzzsaw without support. Not that they need a breaker, but they're going to take a tag. Reality Plus, that's 2 credits or two cards. That's so good. Ping is exactly what you want it to be, a cheap face check in the early game where they have to find their fractor, but it still has a relevant text into the mid to late game. Pop-Up and Serevna are very good as well. I'm a big fan of Serevna. And then you have Mestachesvo, Tollbooth. These are some of the most taxing code gates you can get. And Mestachesvo is actually very market rate for what it does. Vasilisa as well. In terms of the operations, Planogram, a very good one influence consideration for your deck. Card draw can be really good if you're a bit of a combo deck, let alone having an ability to click for 3 credits. Specifically, if you find your deck to be sometimes just have economic issues, this is one of the best cards you can put in your deck for one influence. Click for 3 is huge. One of the worst places you can be in a Corp deck is on 0 to 1 credit, because next turn you can do nothing besides click for 3 credits. And this basically buys you a whole turn, or 2/3 of a turn, 1/3 of 2/3 of a turn, if that is the reality we find ourselves in. I think Predictive Planogram, especially if you're a newer player and you don't think you have a robust economy and you find out you mismanage your funds consistently, is one of the easiest ways to get out of the hole. Planogram is sick. Public Trail is worth understanding that if the corporation can give you a tag if you don't want to or can't spend 8 credits. Again, the reason why we play no free lunches is so we don't have to do any of this math. Again, just play no free lunch. It costs nothing, and it costs 1 influence. And then everything else doesn't really matter besides Sands City Grid, which in theory you can win a game by fast advancing. Trash this if it is. Hush is underplayed for 1 influence. Hush is 2 influence, I think, but Hush is underplayed. I don't think in startup it's underplayed. I think it gets a good play. Yeah. Oh, it's 1 influence. Yeah, we talked about Hush. I think Hush is so good against the NBNI suite. How's it going, by the way, Dajin? Lastly, Wayland. I'm a big fan of Wayland in startup. I think there's a lot of options. We posted a startup modernism list on this channel that I think is a really fun deck as long as you can play it aggressively. I do think if you're tuning into endurance meta, play 2 retributions. Probably cut the clearinghouses, but like trashing the endurance is really, really important if you can. I think all the Wayland identities, barring one, are very interesting. I think Building a Better World is just kind of boring, while Op is its own beast, and there's really good things you can do. Half-run combo decks, fast advance assets, you can do whatever you want. And Built to Last is one of the fastest IDs potentially, especially if you want to do fast advance. 40 minimum and an ability that gives you credits to do the thing you want to do anyways is phenomenal. You don't have to worry about economy. It just gives you a lot of free money. Wayland agendas are actually really fire. This is the faction that has the most 2-point agendas that any faction can play. They can play 10 of them. So you can actually play a whole deck of 2 points. Wait, way more than 10 of them. How many 2-pointers are there? There's a lot, but like you can build that 10 2-pointer agenda suite, which I don't know if I exactly recommend, but this is just really good. Hostile Takeover. Every faction has a playable 2-1. I think that's really important to consider when you're trying to score to 7. If you want to score 3 2-pointers, 1-point agenda just fits into that math really well. So it's really quite good. Otherwise, all the Wayland agendas are really good. Some of them are hard to play around, like Above the Law gets you. Kimberlite Field can just get you. Regulatory Capture you expect in any deck that's taking on a lot of bad publicity, which is kind of a hard thing to do in startup. So be surprised to see it. But yeah, the Wayland agenda suite is good. You don't need to know the text on the cards, but just need to know that they have 2-1s, but every faction does. This is the one faction that's most likely to play their 2-1. In terms of the assets, none of this matters. The ice is really good. You have Stavka, watch out. They can have a 7 strength thing that trashes your programs. If your deck loses to that, maybe figure out how to not do that by either having your Sentry Breaker down or having a panic button, like having a Bankar or having, again, Endurance. This is where we all end up. Archer also is a really scary ice. It's actually one of the best ice in the format, but admittedly an agenda needs to be sacked for this. Another good reason why you want a panic button like Endurance or Banhar or stuff like that. I think Whoredom is better than it looks because it's one of the few code gates in the format that's easy to play, as much as 2 influence is a bit higher than you'd want it to be. That is over the Buzzsaw limit. I think 4 strength is a really nice place to be. And Ice Wall, admittedly for 1 influence, also can fit in just about any deck if you just want to cheap end the run. You can also play Palisade, which actually Palisade is pretty good if you're expecting Cleaver. But yeah, that works too. Pharos is also pretty good if you can afford it. In terms of the economy, this is where things get really important. Retribution and End the Line are the 2 premier tag punishment cards. Again, these are cards that can single-handedly win the game. If the runner can give you a tag through something like a Public Trail and you can't pay it away, or they stick a Drago and they trash your Endurance or your imported one of Breaker, you'll be in a bad spot. Inherently, any deck, I would not play singleton breakers. I would always play 2 of each breaker unless your deck is also playing recursion. I think you're in a much better spot if that's the case, because if a retribution does connect, yeah, you're not going to lose the game. Again, we'll say this time and time again, at least play 2 copies of No Free Lunch if you can, and keep them on the table as long as you can, and don't crack them unless you really need the money in a pinch, because these cards will kill you. So just make sure you have that 0 influence, one influence, 0 cost way to like not die to that stuff. This is why we play No Free Lunch, these 2 cards alone. So keep that in mind. This is also the worst punishment for a single tag. So if you ever have a tag and you can't clear the tag, try and get to 4 cards in hand. So like if it's your last click and you have a tag and you're going, I'm going to click for a credit and you have 3 cards in hand, always wrong, always draw to 4. This is the punishment for a single tag is 4 meat damage. So just try and keep 4 cards in hand. I feel like we're getting mini versions of reviewing Parhelion early takes. Yeah, but it's different because it's startup. And startup actually is like a relatively different meta and it's very interesting. But like none of these takes are that different as much as there's system update takes in here as well. For what it's worth, like system update cards are the ones that we generally dismiss because they're less interesting. A lot of the Parhelion cards are like very, very interesting. From this point on, nothing matters besides Zato, which is a very powerful card that can just be really good on a remote server. A lot of times against Wayland decks, if you can't deal with Zato, which again is why we run pinhole threadings, again, spend your blue influence, this on a remote server is a nightmare. So you just have to deal with this thing. Crisium Grid, I think it's going to be the last 1 influence card we're going to call out. This card looks like it does nothing on text. All it does is that it makes runs on the server to be considered unsuccessful. It doesn't make them unsuccessful. That would be obviously absurdly powerful. It just makes the runs to be considered unsuccessful. And for what it's worth, in startup, there are not that many cards, unlike standard, that say, if this run is successful, do something else. A lot of the like actual value cards off of central servers just care about if you breach, or they care about like other stuff like wake implant's still going to happen, right? Like you can't stop everything, but if you're losing to deep dives, if you're losing to finalities, these are the sort of cards that also care about making successful runs, and you can consider playing Crisium Grids. It's a card that I don't think is as important, but it is an option in a toolbox you have access to. So yeah, finality, exactly. But like, yeah, still hard. It's still hard. They just have to trash this and then come back in finality. And that slows them down. This is 5 credits. And a lot of times you don't even have to res it. Like you only res it when they finality. And if they expect an upgrade, they're not going to finality. And then they have to run it and trash it for 5. So like, that's good for you. But yeah, that's Wayland. I think we're just going to do neutral real quick on the neutral corp side. And then we'll get to looking at deck lists. What X Crisium and Op is good for those weird situations. Yeah, you can get away with one of anything in Op largely. But yeah, I think that text or that ability that has the option to make the Crisium not useless if they just sell it or pull it when they need it is obviously very, very good. Neutral agendas are kind of all over the place. Off-world office is arguably one of the best agendas. Inherently, having an agenda slot in your deck that also is an economy card that also pays you when you score it out, that's like the best of all fronts, right? Like inherently the most win more card, right? Oh, I scored 2 points and I got 7 credits. Not that all the other agendas don't have text, is really quite good. Again, it's a 4-2, so you want to play seamless launch or install advance, but keep this in mind. This is a really good neutral option. All the other neutral options are a mixed bag. I'm not a big fan of orbital superiority. I think superconducting hub you should probably never play, but send a message is interesting. And I do think there are some decks that are okay playing a singleton 3-pointer in some agenda distributions. Sorry, we don't have the math out yet, but send a message isn't the worst card. As much as having a lot of send a messages and having the runner have a non-zero chance, a pretty considerable chance to win on like as few as 3 accesses or 3 agenda steals, mind you, kind of sucks. Regolith is one of the best neutral econ cards in the entire format. I haven't built a startup deck in such a long time. It's not running 3 of these. Again, it's like it's 13 credits on a single card. That's almost as much money as a single Thule deck can get in a lifetime. Like that's a lot of money. Play these. They're so good. Pad Campaign is not great. Neutral Ice is reasonable. I think Palisade is actually not the worst as much as it doesn't really have text. Don't put this on central servers. If you're expecting Cleaver or if you're expecting, I don't know, Tremolo, like you want this on remote server. Tithe is better than it looks for 1 credit. A lot of Sentry Breakers break this for 2 credits. That's a good trade as much as this doesn't end the run. And these code gates are not the worst, but I'm worried about how much buzzsaw you're going to see. But like Enigma is classic. White Space is like fine. Hedge Fund's great. Try not to play 3 subliminals or even 2 subliminals, maybe 1 subliminal. But I feel like all the good runner decks want to run every single turn. So I'm not hot on subliminal anymore. Play on pair if you want. I'm not going to stop you. I've warned you. You can do it. It's fine. Send a message as the turd in the punch bowl of every HQ. It has text. If they steal it, like you get a free whatever brawn. It's not that bad. Think I'm on NBN tag punishment and card manipulation. Plus, criminal chess will always be running. Sounds like fun play styles. Yeah, Anders, you can't go wrong on any of that stuff, really. Just about every NBN card is good except that one ice. Hopefully, you found out which ice that is, and you're not playing it because that's the bad ice. We don't play the bad ice. That's it. Thanks for tuning in. We're gonna go. What do you want to do? We want to look at deck lists real quick. Like we can just net deck some deck lists and look at them and be reasonable. We're gonna probably play one game. So pick your favorite faction that you want to know more about. But let me tell you, if you go on NetRunner, you hit search, you go to set allowed packs, you hit this button, and this giant drop down comes down. You hit startup. Then you go to cards used and you search your favorite ID. So we'll just do reality plus. I'm gonna go precision design because I want to see whatever the list big unit posted, and then you can search and you can add more cards in there and find out what your favorite cards are, and you can find a deck. So this is big unit posted this PD Parhelion startup deck that supposedly is pretty good, and there's no write-up, but like it's okay. And this is a good deck supposedly. Like that's how easy it is, and you just pull it and you notice this deck actually looks neat. The ice package is like kind of cool. As much as, oh man, I don't like Pulse, but with defensive remotes, Pulse is fine. But that's the idea, that you can just do that. So like, do we want to find a good ESA deck? Yeah, we'll type in ESA. We'll find an ESA deck. Cool. You can sort by likes. You can also like, some of these are decks that are enjoyed because not so much they're competitive decks, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like this doesn't have to be a competitive event if you don't want it to be. And we can find certain decks. And you're going to notice again, most of these startup decks are going to be like 90% the same. Which is fine, especially like most ESA decks. And then the influence spend is going to be the interesting thing. Yeah, Steven, how's it going? I'm going on Saturday. I have no idea what to play because I'm running an event on Sunday, and that's been taking most of my mind space as much as one startup and one standard. Are you on there on Saturday too? How you doing, man? A deck has a Midnight Arcology in it? Yeah, I think you have to. I'm confused about Crim. Presumably you want to play Crim so you can play 3 NFL and 3 Pinhole and save on influence. But then you play what? Boat Steve? I think for criminal, there's a lot of stuff you can do. Cody, I think you don't want to play Steve. I think Steve is probably worse than... Okay, I think Steve is fine. I think Steve, Zaya, and Sable are somewhat interchangeable. I think if you want to really hoof it and you don't want to play Endurance, you can play Sable with Deep Dive and probably be very aggressive and maybe close out some games sooner than you want to. But I do think you can play any of those decks with Chesva and the Twinning and Waken Plan or whatever, and play 1 Endurance, maybe 2 Endurances, and then just play good stuff criminal, and it's really good. Yeah, I think it's really good. Sable's fine. I do like Zaya a fair bit. I found that you can get paid pretty handsomely with Zaya by just like, you know, playing all the like burst multi-access stuff. I'll be there. It's been super crazy with school, which is why I can only catch the last hour streams. Also, I have no idea what to play. Yeah, yo, you and me both. That's totally fine. I'm excited to see you. It's been a bit. Hopefully school's going okay, but it's standard, right? We just got a new ban list. I don't know. A lot of people some people are going to be playing Isla and R+, so like keep that in mind because there's prize support for playing the best Isla and R+ for some reason. All right, like this is an ESA deck, 45 cards, okay? So this one's on 3x Mayfly. We didn't talk about Mayfly, but it is a neutral breaker. You can always play this. It's not on Banhar, and then it's just trying to get as many finalities quickly as you can, and that seems fine. Otherwise, this version, again, similar idea. It's on Hippocampic. I'm not a big fan of Hippocampic. I don't think you need more hand size. I think hand size, you have enough hand size. But look at this, 3 no free lunch. We figured it out. That's all you have to do. You just put together all your favorite Anar cards and then you play 3 no free lunch. Again, I think S is the one ability that doesn't play pinhole threading for some reason. I think you probably should play pinhole threading. But then like, yeah, 6 Matryoshka. You can play this as a fun breaker suite. Just make sure you have a way to not die to program destruction, which would be no free lunch. You also don't have a way inherently to deal with, what's it called? Stavka, but like what's fine. Why is there prize support for playing the best R+? This is for the standard tournament in Montreal. Sar, who organized it, has like 2 IDs, like acrylic IDs, and he's like, I got an Isla and R+ ID. I'll give them out to whoever places the best. It's fun. It's nothing to do with Sunday. Nothing at all. Riding the Dragon. Yo, Running, how's it going? Hey, chat friends. Hippocampic is nice if you want to brain yourself every turn. I don't think that's necessary though. Like I don't think it's realistic. Like this already gives you extra, technically 2 hand size, right? So for this card, it is tempo negative, and then you still have to charge it somehow, which like, how do we do that? I don't know how we do that. And then we're spending 2 influence on a card to get, it does so little. Like if you really wanted to worry about hand size, like I reckon even to some extent, it might be easier to play, what's it called? The T400, like that just does it. But I've never seen an ESA deck where the game isn't over before somebody has reached bottom of hand size, right? Like I just don't think it's a realistic issue we're running into. I'm gunning for those prizes, dodging you too. Marco J said earlier he's going for them as well. So I'm not surprised for Isla, right? But yeah. I made a silly Corp deck today. Calibration testing, Overseer Matrix, Clearinghouses, good to fork the runner. That sounds really fun. Well, good, maybe overstating, but fun at least. Those are really fun remote servers. It's probably not good, but Hippocampic can be fun in Padma, where we can keep putting more counters on it. Yes, but you're doing that instead of charging a card that actually has an impact on the game, right? Like that's always the problem with Padma is like, oh, this Padma deck has like 10 charge things. It's like, well, you're going to charge the good one, which is generally Endurance or like Wake and Plant. So a lot of times like charging this is so expensive when you're not charging your Endurance. And again, additional hand size has no impact on the game whatsoever. There used to be cards in Standard that said draw until you fill your hand size. Like there's just no payout card in the entire startup, let alone Standard format that cares about hand size. So yeah. Look at that Whale Rider deck. Yeah, we got it here. Wait, which one? Did we open it? This one? So how's it going? I missed announcements. What do you mean? How's it going, by the way? Oh, no. Oh, boy. Okay, so this is also on Double Orca. This sounds really fun. We're going to have to get this down with Retrieval Run, I reckon. I think getting down on Orca is like somewhat interesting for Anarch, who inherently struggles with some of the big sentries, but like that's going to be very difficult. Again, Buzzsaw, no surprise, and then double Tremolo, which you can play Cleaver, you can play Begamot. There's actually a chance that Tremolo is not even the best breaker for ESA, but it's quite fun because you get it down for free. I think that's to some extent why Hippocampic is in this, just to play enough Cybernetics, but like Zenith Chip is so good. Tourney Prep, yeah, we're talking about like startup basics for those who maybe want a refresher real quick. Yeah, this deck is wild. This deck is wild. Triple Finality, a single Chistushka. Yeah, so that's like a big thing. Okay, so like I want to show you how easy it is potentially to build a startup deck, right? Okay, so say this is us. This is us. This is our deck. And we're going to build an ESA deck real quick. I've done this before. I think the hardest part is getting down to 45 cards. We hit new runner deck. We're going to go startup up here. We're going to pick ESA. Then we're going to go to collection. And then we're going to hit startup. This should be automated when you build a startup deck, but okay. And this is it. Like these are all the events we have. It's so minimal. And we're just going to start by putting in all the cards that we definitely want to play. So we definitely want to play 3 Steelskin Scarring because it's just a good card draw. And if we're going to take core damage, it's free card draw. Okay. We put 3 of those in. Let's try and play Running Hot, which I think is a good card. Just is what you want to do in ESA. Extra clicks, let alone our ability every turn. So we'll play, I don't know, 2 of them. Maybe we'll play more. And then from here, is there anything we need to play? I think we're going to consider playing a Chistushka, maybe 2. Very powerful card. And then we'll play maybe 2, maybe 3 Finality. We'll just start at 2. Okay, cool. All these other cards are not necessary. And once we need additional card slots, we can add Raindrops, Cut Stones if we want to. Like, great. Wildcat Strike, we can add it when we want to. Oh, don't forget Casual Filter. Yeah, you're right. You should hit this filter. It doesn't matter for runners. It matters for Corps, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, wait. Is World Tree banned if you don't hit that? Actually, maybe it does matter for runner. Interesting. All right, let's look at the neutral stuff real quick before we spend any influence. Dirty Laundry is like a good enough card. You want to play these if you can. Sure Gamble is a great card. You want to play these if you can. And I think there's a chance that ESA does not need to play Jailbreak because our multi-access is going to be through other means, basically Sabotage, so we don't have to play this. What are your meta takes as top of the Corp and Runner meta to tech for? Tags, Pinhole Threading, card draw. That's it. Like, I think all of the meta considerations for startup can be solved by no free lunch, Pinhole Threading, and then in third place, Stone Chip Chart Room. And then having enough money. That's it. That's it. That's all the meta considerations. I do think there's a meta consideration about Stavka and program destructions. That one is its own issue, that if you're worried about op, that actually is a hard thing to solve besides playing Endurance. But like, yeah, that's hard. I'm not hearing Clot. No, you can't play Clot in format. Clot does not make sense in startup whatsoever. We didn't even talk about this card, but this is the one card that could stop fast advance in startup. As uncommon as fast advance is for some reason, it's just there's no way to produce this at instant speed. There's no simul chip, there's no self-modifying code. So you just have to like hard cast Clot and then hope it matters, and then they purge it. And like that's okay. But the power of Clot is not to stop fast advance, it's to stop fast advance while the agenda is on the table. Like get them and your cake. This is just slow the game down. It's not good. Endurance banned? Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, you have to hit this button for endurance. Yeah, that's really important. No, SMC isn't. Yeah, it's not. Okay, hardware. Let's start here. So we're going to be playing 3 Marrow because we want to get it down. I think there's good reason to play 3 Ghost Tongue because it is important. It's in the card we want to get in our opening hand because it is a lot of money. I think there's some consideration you want 2 of these, but we'll get it down. And then here, we're not playing Carnivore because it's a console, and we'll play Time Bomb. In fact, we'll play 3 of them because it's fun. And it has the word Sabotage on them. We go to programs. So we have to ask ourselves how we're going to break barriers, how we're going to break code gates, how we're going to break sentries. And this is where it starts to get really hard with ESSA, because it's hard to build an ESSA suite that makes a lot of sense. So I do think there's a chance that ESSA can be our one option to play something slightly different, because we're going to try and win in giant, massive swings as opposed to trying to get 17 separate axes, right? Yeah, exactly, Diogene. Banhar and Mayfly is what we're going to do. So I think instead of interacting with the Anarch Breaker suite, which on its own is good, but needs support or endurance, and we're not going to play endurance because we probably want to play Marrow, we're going to do something slightly different. So we're going to play 3x copies of Mayfly, which means that we can use this to make very targeted runs when and if we need it. And we're going to make very powerful targeted runs. We're going to be running archives, let alone hitting finalities and chastushkas. So we'll put these on 3 and 3. And then on top of it, we're going to be playing Banhar, which is our way to be able to get into whatever server we want to in the early to mid game at the cost of cards in hand. So we'll just play 3 of those. That means we probably want to be playing Raindrops Cut Stone, because it's a card that works really well with Banhar because it wants subroutines to fire, and inherently Banhar is cool with that. And we basically have a deck already. At this point, we just want to add more card draw and enough economy. So let's do that. We have Ghost Tongue, so we're incentivized to play more events than we are to play resources. As much as we can jam into here 3 copies of Liberated Counts, it might not be correct. So we'll see what else we can do. Is there anything else here that's screaming out? I think there's a chance you can do Augustina and play some amount of viruses, but it's pretty slow. I don't think we need to do that. Influence is hard to fill for this deck. I don't think it's the hardest, but yeah, maybe it's a bit tricky. So if I want card draw, I'll look at the Shaper faction. I think Criminal has no card draw whatsoever. And one of my favorite card draw cards for this sort of deck is Nuka, because Nuka is amount of card draw more than Diesel, and it's a card you can install, then take core damage, and then draw out, which is really nice because you don't want to lose cards to hand. Now, it's hard to play sometimes 3 Nukas because admittedly she's unique, so maybe you can play 2 of these, and then maybe you can play something else, but we'll see. Could go Matryoshka. I think we could, but Matryoshka is actually really hard to play in ESSA because you need to install them, and that can sometimes be difficult, but I don't think we have to run that much, but I think Matryoshka is good. Zenith's good in here, so is Carpe. I don't know if I want to do Carpe because we can't run that much, but I think Zenith is very good. I do think I worry that Zenith might not make sense in this deck because, again, with 3 Mayfly and Banhar, I don't know if we can run that often. Maybe with Banhar, we can hit centrals with Zenith and feel good about it. We'll try 1, but this maybe is a bit dubious. All right, well, we need to play more cards. So again, we're not done with the Anarch programs because Anarch has some really good programs. We can play Blotulus really easily. We can play 3 of them. It means that we don't have to rely on only Mayfly. We get this on R&D and then, or in HQ, in 2 turns we hit a finality, sick. And then we want to play 3 Fermenters because it's just an absurd economy card and it gets a lot of money. We're basically done. We basically filled a whole deck. At this point, we probably just need a bit more money. Maybe we play some more stuff to Ghost Tongue, but we're largely done. Do we have a 9 influence sync? Yeah, you bet we do, but that's so easy to fix. You just hit all the factions, and then you hit every single button here at the top, and then you just hit this eye until they give you the high influence card. And then you just pick your favorite one. It's that easy. It's really that easy. Startup deck building is like that good. Would you consider playing Sabotage ESSA in Standard? If I'm trying to like win a high stakes tournament, probably not the most consistent. If I'm trying to have a lot of fun, yeah, ESSA's real fun. ESSA's really great. But ESSA is not like a competitive archetype currently. Okay, so now we can figure out what we can play. And like we can play any of these ridiculous high influence cards because we have 9 influence. So I don't know. ESSA came second to Victoria CEO. Nice. 16 people. Ooh. I think also ESSA, like if people haven't played around ESSA, ESSA gets a fair bit stronger. But like, yeah, I don't know. I think there's a big chance that like just standard Anarch can do it. Only beat out by Eric. Oh, the final boss. Hey, Solomir, endurance still legal in startup as long as you remember to hit this button. Yeah, you can do it. You can definitely do it. Okay, so what else are we playing? How do we fill in influence here? Like we can do whatever, we can start doing goofy stuff. Like we can start playing Inside Job. It doesn't work with Banhar really well, but like you can do it. Do we want to play a single Katarga? We can consider it. Katarga is actually like pretty reasonable when it comes to Ghost Tongue, where you play it for 1 credit and it lets us recur like a finality, so we can play 5 finalities. It's fine. S is probably tier 2. Yeah, I think S is pretty good. I don't think people are putting in the time though to test ESSA, which like that obviously isn't going to be a help. Do we play with 9 influence left? There's a chance that this deck is honestly fine. There's a big chance that this deck is quite reasonable. Like this is where I want to play even more stuff. Like I want to play Enga and then like play more Sabotage stuff, as much as I don't think that's important. What are other ways we can deal with ice? I feel like it's Inside Job, but that's not a nice card that you want to hold in hand because ESSA will eventually end up eating it. I think another Running Hot makes sense. I think we can probably also play what's it called? But this is where like I struggle to deal with slots. Like I just don't know if we have a slot issue or not. Like maybe we cut a ghost tongue. It seems a bit like sacrilege, but we have so many ways to take core damage that I feel like we don't need that economic burst. Like it's okay. It's fine. It's not the most necessary card. And then we can end up playing feels like this wants pinholes. I think to some extent, like I always want to try playing this. Like I'm gonna be one of the last, like I'm gonna be that person constantly trying to play Light the Fire and never do it. I think pinhole, for what it's worth, is like slightly difficult to play because pinhole is you know, it generally stays in hand for a couple turns, and Essa can't really play cards that like this will be good in 2 or 3 turns. But yeah. Wake and plan for super finality. It's kind of hard though because we can't run HQ for fun. No free lunch. Oh yeah. Thanks. Yeah, that 100%. Because we just get the low cards in hand and just die out of nowhere. Yeah, I would play with like 3 no free lunch. Like I think that's totally fine. And this is like a comparable card. We have 9 influence and no boats. If we had 0 influence and 2 boats, yeah, how's it going? It's just like you kind of have to play Marrow and Essa. It's the necessary evil. Yeah, I played Light the Fire and then like I don't like it. As much as Light the Fire is really cool because it inherently pressures spin doctors without even having to do anything. And I think that's kind of fire in Essa. So like, I don't know what to do. Like this is where it gets really difficult. Like I think Raindrops is really good in the list. Maybe we cut 3 Dirty Laundries. And like, this seems reasonable. We added like 3 Dirty Laundries worth of value as much as they're not run based. This is fine. Do we just float 6? Like it's sacrilege, but like I promise you this deck is reasonable. Like that's why I don't think it's a stress. Wake, it's hard to run HQ a lot. It's really difficult to run HQ a lot. Like we're gonna be getting like 5 good runs a turn. Backstitching isn't real. Inside Job is like okay. The problem is like Inside Job doesn't work with Banhar. And it's not a card we can hold in our hands. So we're gonna have to tempo out Inside Job. Asmund is not a good card, unfortunately. It's just like way too slow and kind of expensive. And like 2 different viruses. I don't know. Yeah, Nanook. Hold on. This I like. This is cool. Remove it from the game. Break 2. I'm actually okay with Nanook. Creative comms is okay. Docklands for HQ pressure after they sabotage. I feel like if that's the case, like we'd almost rather legwork or Chestushka even. I think legwork's comparable, and legwork might be better because we are in Ghost Tongue. Lag? What's lag? Creative Calm is like fine. It's just like, is Creative Calm better than any of our econ cards right now? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. I've got a like, Imp Clot Mess. Legwork. Yeah, I think legwork also makes sense too. Maybe 1 decoder for magnets? We may fly those though. Like I don't think we care that much. Like the magnet has to be able to not be dealt with Banhar and not be dealt with Mayfly. Like it's possible that you can play a single decoder. I just don't know if it's necessary. I'm gonna play this like 6 influence. Who cares? Like the fact that we can't think of a really good thing. Poison Vial doesn't actually do much, right? Like Poison Vial doesn't interact with, it interacts with Botulus, but like yeah, it's actually not that bad. Yeah, it's okay with Botulus. You're right. But like we're like really deep down into like you know like. This is not necessary influence. We're just having fun. Single deep dive, Solomir. Oh man, that's good. That's really good. Oh no, it's impossible. We can't deep dive with Mayfly Banhar deck. That's ridiculous. You almost got me for a second. Proco. Richard, how's it going? That is a cool idea. I just think we can't afford to play this. We have to get it earlier, not at all. But it's not the worst. Single APOC, Dana, how's it going? I don't know. The cards like this you don't see in startup anymore. Like they're not terrible. I think there's a chance though that like we'd actually play before Proco. What's it called? Verbal. But Proco's like weird. Proco's like kind of F it. Let's try it. Let's try it. Like I don't know if this is good, but we're gonna try it. We got 2 influence. We got a poison vial. We got to cut 2 cards. What do y'all feel strongly about? I feel like Raindrops is fine. I feel like it's hard to get a good Raindrops run unless we're like Raindrops Banharing the remote server. I want to play 3 of them just to see what they feel like though, because they don't play enough of those. Let's cut a. Oh, there's so many cards I just want to play. Like I want to try Katurga because I haven't played Katurga. Essa needs Proco. I've never seen Proco in Essa. I wonder if we play 2. Just yeah, let's. Essa needs. I don't know about that. That's wild. What can we cut? I don't want to play 47 as much as like we might run out of hit points at some part with Banhar. Just having good. Just play 2 Procos and 48 cards. Who cares? I do. Because like if the deck can't get to its Banhar engine very soon, we don't do much. Reprise. It's really hard though to keep Punisher cards like this in hand when you're Essa. So if anything, we could Turga Reprise, mull for Proco. Mull for Proco. I'd much rather mull for Banhar. Light the Fire cut. It's unfortunately we can't, just because no one's ever played Light the Fire. Like we just have to figure out. Okay, I'm gonna do 2 Proco, and then we have to cut 3 cards. Running Hot is like cuttable, but I think it's like low key a very good card. I think the Poison Vial is cuttable. I think the Need is cuttable, but again, like, are we spending influence just to spend influence? Are we at a world where you don't need to spend all your influence? I love co-op deck building. Yeah, me too. It helps. It does help a lot. Time bombs maybe can go. I worry that we don't have enough pressure if we don't play like every single pressure card we can play. If anything, maybe we can play a fewer time bomb, because I don't think we need one turn 1, and like they're unique. Sometimes you just get an ugly time bomb in hand. Cut some finality. Man, I don't know. With Banhar, we just have to we have to finality. I'll cut a raindrops and we'll play 46, and we'll totally be fine about this. Okay, 15 influence. Am I right? Let's go. All right, let's play some startup. This is fun. I think Jinteki can be difficult because Jinteki has a lot of reasons to put cards into archives, but otherwise, like, I think Thule is a bit difficult too, but like, you just pray they don't draw ontologicals, you'll be fine. Or steal the ontologicals, that's also an option. 15 influence, startup, but like, I'm telling you, startup deck building is not that intimidating. Admittedly, like, we kind of cruised over the icebreaker suite, but I promise you, if you're playing on Sunday, you can find something on NarrowDB that's reasonable, or you could build something and it will almost... What? How did this autocorrect to all this? That's really weird. It's not a Corp deck. Yeah. I know it's not a Corp deck. I just wanted to see. But yeah, you can get something done. It'll be fine. I figure 3x Chast Bomb, you can lean harder and sabotage axes instead of Finality. I think Finality is just such a good card. Like, I think Sabotage is a bit less consistent. Just seeing the top 4 cards of the deck is super consistent, let alone it's a card that also says Sabotage on it, right? Is this Sunday tournament standard? It's startup, Kalana. Oh, is that a surprise? It's startup on Sunday. Unless you're seeing me like mess up JNet. But no, it's startup. One of these buttons there. 888 decks. Yeah, it's a vault. I don't know if I said heavy baseless. I know you were in chat before. Oh, you didn't know? Kalana, you got to build a new deck. Oh, NEH. Okay, NEH can be hard. We don't inherently have any asset tech, so that can be difficult. But like, hey, how good is this opening hand? Opening Marrow, not the most excited for. We're mulliganing for Proco. That's what we're doing, right? I think we agreed to that. Asphyxia, she mulligan too. So, okay, no Proco, but that's fine. We have the turn 1 Zenith. Generally, central servers aren't iced up well. Thanks, you two. The big threat for NEH is that some of the assets on the table can hurt us. Things like, what's it called? Bladder can be a problem. But we are just going to slam Zenith, go HQ, go. We have no economy in this hand. We don't want to Chestushka turn 1, but we want to basically hit the Zenith, hopefully hit a Steel Skin. Spin Doctor, though, we have to trash that before. Don't Sabotage before there's a Spin Doctor on the table. That's not worth your time. If you ever get logged in your house, just talk to your lot calmly because communication is the key. That's some finality respect. How's it going, by the way? Ours was Jay-Z. Let's start with that again. She forces us to trash this. I think we'll be a bit upset because it is expensive, but she's using it. The last tournament I played, the biggest predictor of whether or not I won my Corp game was whether Finality whiffed or not. Yeah, that's multi-axis. That'll happen. That's fine. Zenith, we hit a Mayfly. Okay, we only have 1 Mayfly left. Now there has to be a Sabotage. HQ was fixed a bit. But we have to pay attention to where she sabotages from. 1 from HQ, 1 from RD. Okay, so now we're definitely going to run HQ. We could actually just slam Chestushka, but then like financially we have huge issues. F it. Whatever. Oh, did Chestushka click 1 for the memes and swipe? I appreciate it. This is Sabotage 4. So we sabotaged 6 this turn after a Spin Doctor. So like HQ might not have agenda, so it's 2 and then 2. So we're just going to run archives just because we got our free card draw, but let's just see what this is. Immediately, we might not need to, but this gives us a good read. Like, we saw 6 cards on turn 1. Wow. Wow. Okay, so she wants to tag us. Obviously. Public trail. She also has traps. So we did a lot of damage on turn 1. We have no money. That's going to be a problem. Like, it's hard to get out of this hill, let alone to draw into, what's it called? It's going to be a problem. To draw into, a Proco is going to be pretty bad. So, like, we kind of sent it. I don't think I would be this aggressive normally. So we can't trash anything. We basically have to get, we cut the dirty laundry. So we have to get a fermenter to get out of this hole. Steel skin, there's no way to take damage. We can run archives to draw a card. There's no point to do that. Shit. Okay, so we just need to get cards. We could sabotage this turn if we want with the Marrow. I feel like we might take, like, this is maybe the issue with this Proco is that now we've gone too low, but that's kind of on us. So we can run archives quick to get the time bomb down. I don't feel like that puts on a lot of pressure. So I think we just click 3 here. We can throw out something. This is our first Marrow. We have 3. We're not needing it anytime soon, but it is a core damage card. I think the Chastushka is probably less likely to be necessary. Oh, we're at 4 hand size, but of course. Yeah, okay. All right, we've immediately come to a halt. Creative Commission starting to feel like a good influence spend on V2. Yeah, but imagine we got this down, right? Like, we'd actually be fine. But you're not wrong. Ooh, this feels really bad. Yeah, I don't know if I'm in on Proco. That's 2 turns that we didn't sabotage. The thing about SA, you always need to click to draw. I know, but I think I'd rather play Nuka. I think I'd very much rather play Nuka. Or even just like Diesels. Because like this is too slow. Like I don't think we want cards and credits. I think we just want burst cards because we're just going to send it with like Banhar. Yeah, I think the Nuke is reasonable. Light the Fire is reasonable, but it doesn't deal with agendas. I think the Nuke is a bit expensive too, though. Well, it's cheap, but like it's kind of expensive. Yeah, I don't know. This is way too slow for my playstyle of this. Like I want to be running centrals every turn. Okay. So I think we're gonna get the Marrow down now. The better to get this down sooner than Asphyxia starts scoring out agendas because this has text on it. Proco is also awkward compared to like Nuka because Nuka I can time. I can be like, I'm gonna install the Marrow, but now I have to draw with Proco, so there's a chance like I'm gonna like sabotage a card I don't want to sabotage, right? Like, whatever. But you know what I mean? All right, we got a hand size. We hit the Steel Skin. We're down to 0. Don't know what this is. We haven't gotten into our Banhar yet, but now we're like forced to draw with Proco and we can't do anything with the cards. Yeah, I really don't think I like Proco. Like now what are we doing? Like Proco, discard 2? That's probably really bad. 1 from HQ, 1 from RD. All card gets trashed, don't they, from LTF? Oh, you do. I'm thinking of the text on Pinhole that says non-agenda. Excuse me. So like I want to deal with the Maryland, but we obviously like I have to click for credits instead of. Yeah, this I don't know if this is it. We can check archives. It draws a card though, which is not the credit we need. There's a Spin Doctor though. We got that down. That's good before we went in. So it looks like this did hit agendas, and that's 2 Spin Docs down. 25 left in R&D, mind you. This deck does drop relatively well. We got a Finality. We get to see Vlad Grid, Planogram. But like I don't think we Proco here. I don't think we Proco here. At SR, game plan might be to win before Proco gets good. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's okay. We're testing this. This is fine. I feel like maybe a different like play style would work, but like how aggressive we are, I think it might not make too much sense with this. Like it's hard for us to hit this because then like if we have Banhar, maybe actually because we get cards at the same time as pushing our board state. But if we don't have Banhar, yeah, this looks ugly. Is Laundry still in startup? It is, and we cut the Laundries to play other slots. So like that's an easy fix. Laundry's really good with Zenith, that as much as we got a turn 1. And Laundry's good with Banhar too. Again, Banhar is now a 1 in 10 to draw off the top. But yeah, this is a bit ugly too. Like we just didn't get a Fermenter soon, so it's fine. I feel like we drew into very few. We drew into literally no economy cards in the top 15 cards, which I think is actually very low for our deck. Besides Proco, we drew into. Seamless launch to place 2 on this. I'm not running that. It's a trap. We don't have to interact with traps. So like that could be either an Urtica that does 4 damage. That we don't care about, but taking tags from checklist, that we care about. All right, let's just tank. I don't know why we're running this. We can't trash much. At least we can contest agendas. It might be a ping. It's a fun house. Okay, so we're forcing her to spend money. We don't want to take the tag. Once we have something, we can deal with that. Let's just keep Procoing. We want her to go to low credits though, so we can just like Finality. I think running HQ also makes sense because I think there's probably agendas in there. Let's just check HQ. We get a card draw if this goes through. I think worst case is a ping, right? Or a Vasilisa. But we're just trying to be aggressive, right? Because the economy isn't amazing. Middle East Maryland's been holding her afloat. Vlad, yeah, there you go. Okay, we have a Banhar. That's really good. Admittedly, if we're tagged, she can get rid of this. But like, what do we do here? I don't want to click Proco. We're throwing in too many cards and we're a Banhar deck. At least next turn it'll be reasonable. I'm just clicking for credit. So if she scores out Marrow Fires, which is nice. Again, there's only one more Spin Doctor. Another Maryland. If we could afford that, that'd be good. Oh, wow, it's a big. Okay, well, she spent 2 credits advancing this. So far she spent 3 clicks and 3 credits to gain 2 credits. Not very good. Admittedly, she got a card draw. Triple advance. It is a headline, so we are tagged. If we had a Chestushka here, we could consider just sending it HQ, as much as it is expensive. And unfortunately, we don't have anything to get Ghost Tongue value for. So we have a tag that we have to clear. I think we can put the mark on HQ. And so now when we run HQ, we take damage, which I think we're totally fine with. So I think first click will send it HQ. There's no ice in the format that cares about us being tagged. It's not like IP block and standard. So if we go here, we're probably going to get card draw, or we're going to lose cards from hand. I think both of those are very acceptable. We probably might want to consider running hot first, actually, because that makes HQ a bit softer. It is a ping. Okay, so now we have 2 tags. That's really ugly. So this fires, so we take a net damage. Mind you, she sabotaged 1. Where did it come from? From HQ. Okay, so we drew into a Time Bomb and a Mayfly. Hit the Steel Skin with so many cards. We got a Freedom. That's good. We drew another card. Okay, we have literally no money, but we have to clear a lot of these tags. So I think it's actually right to running hot here. We'll draw up. Okay. We lost a Botulus, whatever. And now we can have some clicks to clear the tag. I think this gives you more clicks on whole. So we just need to clear at least 1 tag. We are 1 credit short. We're 1 credit short. That's really bad. That's really, really quite ugly. Okay, so we'll put this down. Hopefully we can cheese the game out. We have to discard a card. I think keeping another Banhar makes sense. The finale can win us the game. The Nuka is actually real. I don't know if we're ever gonna. I'm gonna throw out the Nuka because we have Proco, but like I don't know if I want to hit that. We have now 5 hand size. Vig, 2 credits, 2 more off Maryland, 2 more off the other Maryland that was shuffled. She's on 9. Yeah. The Nuka and Proco are also now a non-bow. We're like way deep down that hole. Like we can't use this while we have this. Yeah, I definitely don't think we got our money's worth on Proco, and I don't think we will. That's fine. It seemed good. I wonder if we just don't have, like, if this is a late game card, maybe we just need a bit more burst economy and that we can, like, feel this a bit better. But, like, we haven't drawn into Sure Gambles. We don't have Wildcats. We don't have Dirty Laundries. We haven't drawn into Fermenters. Single tag, shipment from Bladisburst doesn't work. We haven't even drawn to our 2 no free lunches. How many do we have? Which, like, that would be a good draw here. Maybe we could consider drawing into it. Okay. So, Time Bomb gets a counter. We can put the target on HQ if we want to. Yeah, that seems fine. With the 8 credits, she has good money, but we're sneaking up on getting some accesses. Enough accesses. Oh, Proco's gone. Oh, no. That's fine. Okay, that's totally fine, I think. All right, so this is something you can Botulus to take a tag. We know that she has tag punishment in hand. We've seen shipment from, which is pretty bad. I think you drop the Nukas for commission and made the Proco be better. I'd rather do the opposite. I think I'd rather drop this for commission and then still play Nuka. Like, the problem with Proco too is, like, if you want to get access to economy, you're drawing cards, and a lot of times you want to control when you burst draw to play around, like, sabotage or core damage inherently. So I don't even know if that makes sense. All right, we're just going to try and hold on for a bit. I don't think we have to do much. It's going to take her a while to close the game out. So we can do, like, credit, remove tag, credit. Like, it's not exciting. We can also run HQ for a net damage and get an access and a card draw. I think that's also fine, as much as I don't think the access is going to be very good. But, like, I don't think we care to play all these cards in our hand. And, like, we have Banhar. Let's get our accesses. Like, this trades a card for a card while getting an access. That's sick. That's scary. That's really, really frightening. This card is legal. That means the tag punishment can be doubled, as much as that could be, like, archive memories straight into public trail this turn. So, yeah, that's not good. I think we probably shouldn't have cleared the tag, actually. I think maybe we should have just floated. Just so we can play the Sure Gamble, then clear the tag. I think actually that's a pretty substantial mistake. 3, that's a Beal, that's fine. Weird that we haven't drawn a raindrops either. We only have 2, so we cut 1. But yeah, that's why you raindrops through the ping for sure. It would actually be quite good. All right, that's another sabotage from HQ. Time Bomb is going to be next turn, so we want to align that up with a Ghost Tongue or Finality to do more damage. So let's just go HQ. Trade a card for a card. It's a really nice combo. Single and the run. All right, that's fine. Seamless, scary. We know it doesn't do anything on his table. So here we just do credit, credit, credit. Riveting. Maryland gets shuffled back in. That's actually annoying too, because it's just more cards to sabotage out. But this draws a card too. So now they went through 2 unknown cards on HQ. 13 means that she can also res ice on R&D too. So it's harder to like just finality. We need to like botchless the innermost and then we can finality, which actually might be how we close the game out. We also play around last spin doctor, but archive memories means that if we ever sabotage something, it goes back to hand. She pulled an unknown, which is good because we can run HQ and go find it. So time bomb goes off. That's sabotage 3. I think there's a chance we can do a 50-50 on the Ghost Tongue into Shergamble. So it's 3 cards from HQ. So that might be a spin doctor. We're going to put this on HQ. So I think we're going to run HQ. We want to check archives before spin doctor. I don't think we need our archives to get this rich. We can always check archives first and get a card draw. I think that's fine too, because if we draw into like a raindrop, so we can send it HQ. For some reason, I'm remembering the discussion about runner decks being like 75% econ cards here. Whoa, nothing. So all the public trails are out. Shipment is out. Funhouse is out. I think if she did 3 from HQ, either she has nothing or these have to be agendas. So I think here we just send a Chastushka. It's just like really ugly. We could do credit, credit, sure gamble, and then Chastushka next turn. This still could be a spin doctor. Yeah, I think we'll just send it next turn as much as we want to stack the core damage, or sorry, the multi-axis. And like we just don't have the money to trash any of this stuff, but whatever. All right, so she drew 2 unknowns. Because first click draw, 3 unknowns. So she needs an ice here, right? As soon as she has an ice here, it's a totally different game. With 15 credits. Yeah, that's not good. Okay, so now we have to botchless. So we'll still put this on HQ. We'll do botchless Chastushka. We could do a 1 in 3 for the Ghost Tongue not to hit this. I don't think it's worth. Hey, Trollbait, just joined. What's Essa doing? Just doing some sabotage. It's a Vasilisa. Okay, that's going to get not a tag. It's going to just be net damage. We lost the Ghost Tongue. That's totally fine. And then this we botchless through. Again, we have very limited breakers, so we're just trying to get enough value from this. This will draw us a card as well. I cry every time you don't throw the Ghost Tongue down. It's just really hard too, right? Like we lose the botchless. That's a permanent breaker. We're hoping to draw into, yeah, Katurga means we can like Chastushka again. So we'll see where these 4 come from. 2 from HQ, 2 from R&D. Okay, so there's a good chance that we should check archives. We can run HQ next turn pretty easily. We can Katurga archives, but without the Ghost Tongue, it's pretty bad. Let's draw once. Okay. Yeah, maybe we do have to roll it. Silver 6 still could be a spin doctor because it wasn't res, but we'll take an off-world office. So I don't know if she's on 3-pointers. She might be on 2 1s. Silver 6 could easily be a Sansan. And I think now we probably should trash this. Oh, it's a Maryland. She just didn't res it for a bit. Okay, maybe she forgot or maybe she wants a bluff. But now she drew 2 more unknowns and we can always just like Katurga into Chastushka. That's so much less expensive when you have the Ghost Tongue down for obvious reasons. And now we can close the game out by like botchlessing this. Like she only has 15 cards left. In terms of the tag punishment, like what are we expecting? Obviously the freedom of informations, but we've seen 1 backroom, 1 shipment from Vlad. So like, I don't know. And we've seen all 3 planograms. So like, I don't know. Maybe at some point we can just start floating tags. So here we definitely send it HQ. I think we send it before anything else. We do on HQ. I think we Katurga HQ. We can pull back any card. This costs us 2, obviously, but our money is not being used. So we can figure out what we want. A time bomb is like the safe, easy play, and she only has 15 more hit points. As much as the remote server doesn't really exist. We could also pull back like... A running hot, honestly, is probably fine. I think we just pull back a running hot. Yeah, that's wild. Run Vig, free Katurga? I don't think we would need to afford to trash this. Like, the difference between her having 18 and 15 credits is not really going to matter. Let alone, well, now she's charging it. HQ probably full with the split last turn. Yeah, I think there's a chance that we're going to hit something here. And if we do, then we're in a really good spot with just random sabotage. And this gets an access too, which is really good. Like, this doesn't replace the access. Obviously, if this was 1 credit, it'd be nice. I think we do go for the steel. Oh, not the steel skin. Excuse me. For the Oh, we drew a gamble. That's good. I think we do go for the what's it? What were we talking about? The running hot, right? Yeah, Beal. Okay, cool. So we win in a single sabotage. So here she can't safely sabotage R&D. Let's see where she sabotages from. We lost the sure gamble. That's totally fine. We have another finality. We can set up a botchless in R&D and then finality next turn, right? Like that's so sick. She did 1 from HQ, 1 from R&D. We have 5 clicks left. 5 clicks left. So even, we can't this turn because of the Banhar, but like we run archives. I think she should have trashed the Banhar maybe in hindsight, not the Proco. So we could just win here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, good. Good game. I like the traps. I like the traps. And like that was us just getting as much multi-access and disruption as we could, as quickly as we could. Ooh. Now, she wasn't pushing out very quickly. I think that's something that you easily can do. A lot of effort went into icing central servers. And like literally without any breakers besides Banhar and a single Bonchless, we managed to get off what? 2 Chastushkas. We sabotaged a heck of a lot by just playing Running Hot and some other stuff. We didn't have a lot of economy, but like that's the sort of thing that happens. The corporation doesn't have a very proactive win condition. And mind you, they draw really quickly with NEH like players do. So it kind of can speed things up. You can just kind of get there. Now, we didn't play that perfectly. We kind of played it as a mess. Our economy struggled a bit. We're lucky for the window that we did float tags. We didn't get hard punishments, but yo, good game, As. I should say As for channel, Asphyxia. Good game. Don't trash just doesn't cost anything to activate Katurga. Oh, that's smart. Oh, yeah, we can get an access to on HQ. Yeah. Otherwise, we can just bounce off this to the Maryland if we wanted to, or even archives. Would have been better because we get a card draw with Zenith as well if we want to just Katurga for value. But yeah, in terms of economy that's left in the deck, like we didn't draw into our raindrops, which actually seemed quite good. We drew into no fermenters and none of our no free lunches. We only drew into our gambles late. So like our economy was bottom heavy, but I think we don't have enough economy. I only just rediscovered this game trying to relearn it, and your content has been amazing. Oh, Trollbait. It's very nice to hear those sort of words because again, I want to make the sort of content that helps people get more out of this game and get excited about it. The sort of stuff that like I wish was around, and there's a lot of good content around when I was learning the game too, but like that's good to hear. All right, look, it's unfortunately 11:30. And I have a hard out because I said I would tonight because we got to wake up early tomorrow. But we have an event this Sunday. So hopefully we'll see you there. If you want to find out all that information, again, the link will be in this description. Always be running our first online GNK. It's totally free to enter. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below and I'll get to them, or the email address is there and I'll get to them before the event. Again, also if you're listening to this, you want to do some commentary, you want to do some TOing, stuff like that, hit me up too, because I probably need some help on Sunday. I realize in hindsight. Is this being streamed? Yeah, here by me. For better or for worse, while I organize a tournament at the same time. So it might be a mess of a stream. I'm focusing on making it a better event for people to play in than a stream. So if I'm really panicked on Sunday and unfortunately it doesn't seem like a good stream, that I can't pull off the stream, I will not do the stream and I will just do the event instead, because I think that's a priority. I'd rather have it for these people that are participating for it to be good, if that has to happen, which again, I don't think it does, but like just to let you know, if there's no stream on Sunday, that's what happened. So sorry for the reality of that. I want to help, but I also want to play. Just play, please play. Don't worry about it. We'll make it work. But if you want to play, if you can, I guess. I thought so, but you're wild. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Email, best way to reach out. Yeah, you can email me. It's here. You can also hit me up on Patreon. I don't check it as much as I should. Or if you know where I am on Discord, you can find me there. Or comments of this YouTube thing. That works too. Probably will be asleep due to time difference, but I'm sure it'd be great. Yeah, Macaroni, for what it's worth, we're going to try and do more events in the future that are time zones that cater better to other folks around the planet. Thanks for stream time to go back and watch all the hatred for my deck. It wasn't that bad, Dave. We had a really good matchup. You're very, very, very fortunate we ran into Sports Metal, which is great. But that's it. I'm going to call it today. Again, we have a video we put up yesterday if you want to watch it. It's the startup video for Fast Events Thule deck. You can play that on Sunday if you'd like. Otherwise, we have deck dive videos for the whole past couple of months since the startup rotation. I think most of them are startup if you want to find something there. Otherwise, get involved. Go on green level clearance. Ask people for deck lists. Ask people for opinions. You'll get to something good. And I think that's it. It was a great stream. You did so well to blaze through startup. Again, like, I want to exactly blaze through startup because I do think, and admittedly, like I'm very comfortable with it, you might be less so, that startup is so approachable because the cards are generally very good that if you put just about any card into your deck, it will make sense. It looks like we did not agree with the Proco in this deck, and yet still we can manage to get some sort of results. And that's the idea, that we still had a game plan and most of the cards in our deck made sense. But like, that's the thing. It's like, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. I believe in you. See y'all on Sunday. Otherwise, we'll be back in a bit in next week on a stream. We'll probably have a video out next week. Hopefully you're all doing well. Take care.